Chapter 119. Guan Shilin fearlessly looked into his eyes and said, "Don't you know whether they have mistreated me or not? I don't have parents in the Guan clan. Don't you know whether they have mistreated me or not?" Master Guan's lips were trembling, but he couldn't say a word. They raised him, but they didn't care about him. When they heard that he was dead, they didn't even feel sad. They canceled his engagement and let Shi Ruan marry his fiancée. When they knew that he was still alive, they hoped that he wouldn't come back. When he came back to the Guan clan, Master Guan tried to stop him. He didn't want him to participate in the competition. The Guan family has raised you for so long, and you have the nerve to compete with your grandfather. You even said that you want to leave the family. I think your conscience has been eaten by a dog. The Guan family master shouted sternly. His face was full of righteousness, and he had the demeanor of a family master. Ha ha! Guan Shilin raised his head and laughed. Suddenly, he stopped laughing. He took off his robe and showed the wound on his abdomen. "Do you know how I got this scar?" He walked down from the stage and came to the front of Master Guan. Step by step, he approached him and asked, "Do you know how this scar came about?" "Let me tell you, it was your son, my cousin, who stabbed me in the back with a knife and left it there." As soon as these words came out, everyone gasped in disbelief. The entire scene fell silent, and everyone held their breaths. It was so quiet that even a pin dropping to the ground could be heard. "Bullshit!" The master of the Guan family shouted loudly. His whole body was trembling with anger. However, there was a voice in his heart telling him that it was true. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to say in front of so many people. Master Guan almost fainted. He almost fainted. Brothers killing each other. It was a family scandal. "Bullshit?" Guan Shilin tied his belt and said, "He wanted to kill me from the back with a dagger. Do you think we are all blind? Do you think I can stay in the Guan clan? If you stay, you won't even know when you'll be killed." He looked at Master Guan and said, "Today, I just want to tell you that I don't need your permission. From now on, the rules of the Guan family are useless to me. You'd better leave them to teach the Guan family's disciples." He strode towards Fengjiu and said, "Sister, let's go." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They didn't expect that the Guan family's competition would turn out like this. This was really a good show. First, it was Guan Shilin who was able to use apparition at such a young age. Then, it was Guan Shilin who launched a sneak attack from behind. Then, it was Guan Shilin who asked to leave the clan. Finally, it was revealed that he was rumored to be dead in Jufulin. Even they were shocked by these events, let alone the people from the Guan family. At this moment, seeing the three of them leaving, no one from the Guan family tried to stop them. It was as if they hadn't come back to their senses yet. They also bowed to them and left one after another. They thought that there was a genius in the Guan family, who knew that he would ask to leave the clan and get involved in the scandal of brothers killing each other. Thinking of this, Master Guan's chest was filled with blood. He couldn't breathe and fainted. Master Guan fainted. Call the doctor." Chapter 120. By the time the family heads arrived outside, they had already seen the inconspicuous horse pass by. As they watched the carriage gradually disappear into the distance, they all clasped their hands in farewell and boarded the carriage. Then, they instructed the servants to pay more attention to Guan Shilin's movements in the future. They all thought that since he had already asked to leave the family, they could try to rope him into their family. After all, from today's battle on the stage, they could all see that this person would be extraordinary in the future. Guan Shilin did not care about the chaos in the Guan family, nor did he care about the gazes of others. In the carriage, he sat silently and did not speak. No one knew what he was thinking. Seeing this, Fengjiu asked, "Brother, do you regret it?" "No." He looked at her and shook his head. "I don't regret asking to leave the family." "Then what are you thinking about?" He was silent for a moment before saying, "I have left the Guan family today and asked to leave the family. However, I want to set up my own family. I want to set up my own family in Yinhua City and have a family that is not inferior to theirs." "Sure, that's a good idea." She smiled and nodded in agreement. "Where do you want to buy a house?" "We can buy it immediately." Guan Shilin shook his head. "Xiaojiu, I don't want to use your money. I want to earn my own money and use my own strength to accomplish this." Hearing this, She wanted to say that there was no need to go through so much trouble. However, seeing that he was looking at her with a serious expression and his eyes flashing with determination, she smiled and said, "All right, then I won't help you. However, where do you plan to place your house? I can help you look at the location." Seeing that she did not insist, Guanxilin smiled. "Thank you, Xiaojiu. Even if you didn't say this, I would have looked for you. Your foresight is much better than mine." "Of course." She raised her small face and nodded with a proud expression. Her gaze inadvertently fell on the window that was gently lifted by the wind. She caught a glimpse of a figure and could not help but be startled. "Stop the carriage." The Lung Shuang outside pulled on the reins and stopped the carriage. "What's wrong?" Guanxilin was surprised to see her stand up after putting on a veil. "Brother, you and Lung Shuang go and buy a few servants. I have something to do, so I'll go back later." After saying that, he lifted the curtain and went downstairs. Guanxilin was startled, but he quickly followed her out. "Xiaojiu, let Lung Shuang follow you. I'll drive the carriage myself." Lung Shuang was about to dismount when he heard her voice. "No need, you can go. I could do it myself." Seeing this, Lung Shuang stopped following them and looked at Guanxilin. Guanxilin was silent for a moment and did not insist. He only said, "Since she doesn't want anyone to follow her, then let's go." "She'll be fine." "Yes," Lung Shuang responded. He glanced at his master, who was walking to the side, and then continued to drive the carriage forward. Feng Jie walked forward and arrived in front of a wine shop. She saw an old man holding a wine gourd and sitting in front of the shop, unwilling to leave. For a moment, her eyes became hot, and there was an indescribable bitterness in her heart. That was her grandfather. To be exact, it was the original owner's grandfather. It was reasonable to say that she should not have any feelings for him, but when she saw him, all the feelings in her heart surged up. Her grandfather's love for her and his teachings replayed in her mind. It was as if those scenes were yesterday, but also as if she had experienced them herself. Chapter 121. What's wrong with you, old man? Didn't I already give you the wine? Why did you pour it away again? The shopkeeper's eyes widened, and even his voice became stiff. Who knew where this old man came from and sat in front of his wine shop? He didn't leave until he gave him the wine, and poured it away after he gave him the wine. It really made him anxious. Old Master Feng curled his lips and said with a look of disdain, "Who told you not to give this old man good wine? That wine was as bland as water. Even if you can drink it, this old man can't." The shopkeeper angrily pointed at him and shouted, You old man? Whose family are you from? How can you be so unreasonable? You don't want to give me money and you still want to drink good wine? You should be happy that I'm willing to give you that wine, but you still aren't satisfied. I'm warning you, if you don't leave, I won't be polite with you." Old Master Feng swung his wine gourd and hit the shopkeeper's head. He scolded in a stern voice, "Impudent! Didn't your parents teach you not to point your finger at your elders? You really are impudent, too impudent." When the surrounding commoners heard this, they couldn't help but laugh out loud. The shopkeeper's face turned red, and he even wanted to cry. "Old master, I'm begging you, okay? Have a good heart and leave quickly. Go home quickly and don't block my business. This is only a small business. If you keep sitting in front of my door, how can I do business? Go home." The old man held the wine gourd and tilted his head. He frowned and thought for a bit before saying, "Which family is this old man from? I seem to have forgotten again." Hearing this, the shopkeeper directly knelt down. He rushed over and hugged old Master Feng's thigh, crying and begging, "Old master, I'm begging you, please don't waste your time here. I apologize to you. I shouldn't have shouted at you and shouldn't have been disrespectful to you. A great person like you won't hold a grudge against a lowly person like me. Quickly go home." Old Master Feng's face became stern, and he said with disdain, "You really are useless. You're already kneeling over such a small matter? You're even crying? Don't you know that men bleed, but not tears? Look at what you've become. You're too ugly. I don't even have the face to look at you." As he said this, he actually turned his eyes away and didn't look at the shopkeeper. He pushed the wine gourd towards the shopkeeper and said, "Go, bring this old man half a jug of good wine." I want good wine. This old man won't drink inferior wine." The surrounding commoners looked at the innkeeper with sympathy. Someone even shouted, "I say, just pour some good wine for the old man. Look at the old man's clothes. He's definitely not an elder from an ordinary family. Do you think he's afraid that you won't be able to pay for the wine?" That's right, that's right. I won't skimp on your wine bill." Old Master Fong nodded with a smile and urged, "Hurry up. This old man's craving for wine is acting up again." The innkeeper hesitated for a moment before taking the wine gourd inside to fill it with wine, because he was afraid that the old man would pour the wine away again. This time, it was really top-notch wine. As he filled it, he felt his heart ache, wondering if the old man would be able to fork out the money. And whose family did it belong to? After filling it with good wine, the innkeeper hesitantly handed the wine gourd to him and asked, "Old master, whose family do you belong to?" Old Master Fong snatched the wine gourd away and glared at him. "Didn't this old man just say it? This old man forgot which family I belong to again. But don't worry, this old man won't skimp on your wine bill." As he spoke, he stood up and unbuttoned his clothes, saying, "This old man's clothes are valuable. I'll give them to you as payment for the wine." The innkeeper scowled miserably and said, "I don't have any use for your clothes." Chapter 122. When this sudden female voice entered the shopkeeper's ears, he felt as if he had heard the sound of nature. His eyes lit up as he looked towards the direction of the voice. The surrounding people also looked in surprise at the woman slowly walking over. When their eyes fell on her, their eyes lit up, and they secretly praised her in their hearts. What an outstanding woman! Although her face was covered by a veil, her clear and elegant temperament made people's eyes light up. They all automatically opened up a path for her to walk forward. Miss, is what you just said true? You know that old master? That's great. I'll have to trouble you to quickly take him away. I'll let him delay my business for an entire day." The shopkeeper acted as if he had seen a piece of driftwood that could save his life. Feng Jiu threw out a handful of silver. "This is the money for the wine." Then she looked at Old Master Feng. When Old Master Feng walked out of Feng Jiu's shop, his eyes had been looking at her. When he saw her look over, he couldn't help but grin. With a bit of mischievous temperament, he curled his lips and asked with a bored expression, "Xiao Feng, how did you find grandfather again?" "Xiao Feng, how did you find grandfather again?" Feng Jiu was slightly startled. She stood there in a daze as she looked at him with a bored expression. She saw that his face clearly had a bored expression, but his eyes couldn't hide the joy and happiness of being found. Because of his words, she remembered the hide-and-seek that grandfather and grandson often played when they were young. Every time she found him, he would ask with a bored and puzzled expression, "Xiao Feng, how did you find grandfather again?" Her heart slightly ached, and her eyes became slightly hot. A layer of uncontrollable tears filled her eyes and blurred her vision. Because he recognized her at a glance, and because he called her Xiao Feng, her heart couldn't help but be moved. Her grandfather had intermittent amnesia. How could he forget where his home was? How could he forget who he was? How could he forget what his son's name was? But he would never forget her. He often said that she was the Feng family's little phoenix and also the treasure in their hands. They loved her, spoiled her, protected her, and gave her the best things just to see her happy. Seeing the tears in her eyes, Old Master Feng panicked and hurried forward. "Little Feng, what's wrong with you? Who bullied you? Tell Grandpa. Grandpa will help you beat him up." In order to show that he would help, he even waved his fists. She shook her head and held his hand, leading him out of the crowd and in the direction of the Feng Manor. She walked slowly without saying a word. Old Master Feng, who was beside her, also let her hold his hand and followed obediently. He looked at her carefully from time to time, wondering why she was crying. "Little Feng, do you still have money?" he asked carefully. Feng Jiu stopped and looked at him, then took out a handful of silver and gave it to him. Old Master Feng happily received it and smiled. "Wait here for Grandpa. Don't run around." Saying this, he ran off. Not long later, he ran back and handed the things in his hands to her as if they were treasures. "Here, Grandpa bought you your favorite sugar lotus seeds." Eat the sugar lotus seeds, so you can't cry anymore. Chapter 123. I'm covering my face. How do you know that I'm your little phone? She held the bag of sugar lotus seeds in her hand and asked the question in her heart. After all, even Murong Yixin and Surua Shui were unable to recognize her at first glance. How did he recognize her? Who knew that her words would receive the old man's disdainful gaze? Grandfather watched you grow up. Could it be that grandfather can't recognize you just because you covered your face? Moreover, grandfather has only been in closed-door cultivation for a few months. How could he not recognize you? Hearing his words, Feng Jiu finally recalled that before the incident, the old man had been in closed-door cultivation. Thinking about it, he must have come out looking for wine to drink as soon as he came out. He probably hadn't seen the fake Feng Chinga in the Feng manor yet. Then do you remember which family you belong to? Old Master Feng looked at her and shook his head, sighing, Little Feng, her grandfather has only been in closed-door cultivation for a few months. Why does it feel like you become stupid? You are my granddaughter. Which family do you belong to? Of course, I belong to that family. Is there even a need to ask? Feng Jiu's mouth twitched. Although there was nothing wrong with what he said, why did it sound a bit strange to her? Moreover, it was clear that he did not remember who she was. The two walked the streets for a long time. When they approached the Feng Manor's gates, she stopped walking. You should go back. Next time you go out, don't leave the Feng guards behind. Otherwise, you'll forget the way back. Old Master Feng heard this and felt it was strange. Looking at the Feng Manor's gates in front of him, he then looked at her, who was about to turn and leave. Puzzled, he asked, Little Feng, we're not going home with grandfather? Where are you going? As he said this, he followed closely behind her and lectured her. Say, why didn't you bring someone with you when you went out alone? What if you ran into danger and were taken away? You're the only treasure in our family. If you're kidnapped, where are we going to find you? You're not going back? She looked at him strangely. Her heart was a bit worried. This was great. What should she do with him? Old Master Feng narrowed his eyes with a smile and fawningly said, Don't you still want to go stroll around? Grandfather will accompany you and can protect you. Also, grandfather has just come out of closed-door cultivation. I don't want to return home so quickly. He patted the wine gourd at his waist and said, I still haven't finished drinking this wine. Looking at the Feng Manor's main gate in front of her, she then looked at the old man at her side. She silently sighed before taking him away. Inside the Feng Manor, when Feng Xiao, who was talking to Murong Yixin, heard the housekeeper's report, he immediately stood up and shouted in a deep voice, What? The butler lowered his head slightly, not daring to look him in the eye. Yes, this old servant has sent the guards out to look for him, but there is no news yet. Feng Xiao said with a bit of worry. He looked at Murong Yixin. Grandfather has disappeared. I need to go look for him. Qinggu has been hiding in her room since she came back. I will have to trouble you to go look for her for me. Uncle Xiao, do you want to send someone to help look? Murong Yixin stood up and asked. No need. The manor has plenty of people. Also, I estimate that he should be in a wine shop in the city. We could just go look. Chapter 124. Seeing him leave with large strides, Murong Yixin paused for a moment before he walked to the backyard and arrived at Feng Chinga's courtyard. When the two servant girls in the courtyard saw him, they hurriedly bowed and greeted him. Third Wang Ye. You may leave. He stood in the middle of the courtyard and gestured for the two servant girls to leave. The two of them looked at each other and agreed. Then they walked out. Feng Chinga heard Murong Yixin's voice from inside the room, and the more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. Chinga, I have something to say to you. He stood outside the door and didn't enter. The door creaked open and an angry Feng Chinga stood by the door. What do you want to say? Are you trying to say that you didn't intentionally watch me get beaten? Or are you trying to say that your heart was moved when you saw that beautiful veil girl? Murong Yixin looked at her with a complicated expression. Hearing her words, he was silent for a moment before he said, I'm sorry. Hearing his apology, her heart skipped a beat and she panicked. Big brother Murong, these past few months, I've always felt that you were very far away from me. Do you really not like me anymore? Chinga, you're very good, really very good. He lowered his eyes and thought of the veil girl. We can be said to be childhood sweethearts. Both of us are in love with each other, and I always thought that we would be together forever. Even a few months ago, I was prepared to ask Royal Father for an edict to let us get married. Big Brother Morong, you let me finish. He looked at her and said, but in the past few months, just as you have felt, I have also felt that the distance between the two of us has been growing. I don't know when that feeling of being together in the past disappeared. I know this is very cruel to you, but I don't want to lie to you. Looking at her, who was silently crying, he looked away. Just now, I was going to tell your father to cancel the engagement between us, but after your grandfather came out of seclusion, I don't know where he went. He brought people to look for him. I'll tell him about this in a few days. She rushed forward and hugged him tightly, crying in panic, no, I don't want to. Brother Morong, I don't want to break off the engagement. I like you. I've liked you for a very long time. Do you know that? He let her hug him, and his eyes were filled with guilt. Chinga, don't be like this. Isn't it good if I treat you like a younger sister in the future? No, I don't want to be your sister. I don't want to. Big Brother Morong, tell me, did I not do well enough? Did I do something wrong? Tell me. I'll change. I'll definitely change. She raised her head and looked at him sadly with tears streaming down her face. She didn't want to believe what she had heard. She truly liked him, truly loved him. For his sake, she had imitated Feng Chinga's every move, imitated her speech, imitated her demeanor. For his sake, she was even willing to live as Feng Chinga for the rest of her life and face him with her face. But now, he actually said that he wanted to break off the engagement. He pulled her hands away from his waist and looked at her guiltily. Chinga, I didn't do this in a moment of anger. This thought has been in my heart for some time, and I only said it today. I hope you can understand that feelings can't be forced. I'm very sorry for hurting you. As soon as his voice fell, he no longer looked at her and turned around to leave in large strides. Chapter 125. After a long time, she wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and her eyes gradually regained their luster. However, there was also hatred and ruthlessness in her eyes. Morong Ishuan, I've done so much for you. How can you turn your back on me just like that? I won't let you get what you want. You're destined to be mine. Unlike the Feng family, on the other side, in Fengjio's courtyard, the old master Feng who was brought back was looking at the courtyard curiously like a child taking a stroll. He asked doubtfully, Little Feng, whose courtyard is this? And you, why are you wearing a veil all the time? Although he was a little forgetful, he wasn't stupid. Along the way, he could faintly see that something was wrong. His granddaughter, especially in this courtyard, was wearing a veil all the time. Therefore, a light flashed through his eyes and a smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, in a flash, he raised his hand and pulled off her veil. This courtyard is Fengjio was stunned. Before she finished speaking, the veil on her face was pulled off, revealing her scarred and disfigured face. Hiss! What's going on? Old Master Feng sucked in a breath of cold air and asked furiously. He originally wanted to play a joke on his granddaughter by pulling off her veil to see why she was always wearing it. He didn't expect that under the veil was such a disfigured face. This was his granddaughter, his precious granddaughter. Who was it? Who dared to hurt her like this? Fengjio caressed her face. She didn't expect him to suddenly pull off her veil. This was completely out of her expectations. She didn't want him to see her disfigured face. Who is it? Tell Grandpa. Who hurt your face like this? The old man's heart ached, and his eyes reddened. Even his voice was choked with sobs. He looked at the face that was covered with scars. He couldn't imagine how she had endured that kind of pain. Who was it? Who was so cruel to ruin a girl's face like this? Fengjio's heart trembled. She looked at the old man, whose eyes were red and his voice choked with sobs. She looked away and asked, Do you still think I'm your granddaughter? Do you still recognize me as your granddaughter? Hearing this, old Master Feng finally couldn't hold back his tears. He stepped forward and hugged Fengjio, patting her head with one hand and comforting her with a choked voice. Little Feng, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Grandpa will recognize you. No matter what you become, Grandpa will still recognize you. Grandpa. In the end, Fengjiu couldn't help but call out. This call of grandfather came from the bottom of her heart. It contained Fengjiu's feelings as well as Feng Qingge's. Perhaps, from a moment he recognized her at first glance, she already knew that he was Fengjiu's grandfather. Old Master Feng took a step back, grabbed her shoulders with both hands, and said, "Feng lass, tell Grandpa. Did something happen while Grandpa was in seclusion? Who ruined your face?" Fengjiu was silent for a long time before she said, "There's a Feng Qingge in the Feng family." "What?" Old Master Feng was stunned. "You're saying that there's a fake in the family? That's impossible, right? Your father's son isn't stupid. How could he not recognize his own daughter?" Chapter 126. She did not say too much, only saying, "Grandfather, you can go home and take a look. However, I hope that you will not mention the matter of me being here to anyone." Old Master Feng heard this and was startled. "You don't plan on going back with Grandfather? Are you worried that your father won't believe you? Or does he not believe Grandfather?" She shook her head. "If you still believe that I am your granddaughter after seeing the Feng family's Feng Qingge, then I will go back with you." Seeing this, Old Master Feng stroked his beard and was silent for a while. "Since it's like this, then Grandfather will go back and take a look at the situation. Don't worry, Grandfather will come back." At this moment, his face was filled with a solemn expression and his body exuded the aura of a clan leader. He thought to himself, if there really is a fake Feng Qingge in the family, then that person must be the one who had ruined his granddaughter's face. If that was the case, then he definitely would not let that person off easily. A sharp look flashed across his wise eyes, but when he looked at Fengjiu, he revealed a kind smile. "Feng girl, don't be afraid. Wait here. Grandfather will go home and take a look. Don't worry, Grandfather will come back to pick you up very quickly." Hearing this, her heart warmed. She revealed a bright smile and nodded. Although she originally did not want to go back so quickly, since he already knew about the situation, then she would just wait and see. After Old Master Feng finished speaking, he left the courtyard and headed towards the Feng family. On the way back to the Feng manor, he met Feng Xiao, who was looking for him with a group of people. Seeing him, Feng Xiao hurriedly came forward with a worried expression. "Father, where did you go? Why didn't you bring anyone with you? I already searched all the nearby wine shops, but I didn't see you." Old Master Feng crossed his arms and glanced at him. He heavily snorted and his face was dark. It was clear that he was suppressing his anger and said, "Keep your skin tight. I'll take care of you later." Feng Zhao's face was filled with shock. He did not know how he had angered his father. Just as he was about to ask, he saw that he was already walking towards the Feng manor. He quickly ordered, "Go, call everyone back. Just say that the old master has been found." "Yes." The guard behind him responded and quickly turned to leave. Feng Xiao strode after him and asked, "Dad, what's wrong with you? Who made you angry?" Old Master Feng didn't answer him. He just strode forward with a gloomy face. His eyes were gloomy, and his aura was oppressive. Even Feng Xiao, who was walking beside him, couldn't help feeling nervous. He didn't know what had happened. Entering the Feng manor, the Feng master sat in the main seat and slammed his hand on the table. His old voice was filled with anger as he shouted, "Go call him over." Feng Xiao, who had followed him in, hurried forward and asked in confusion, "Father, who did you call?" "Of course it's the old madam's precious granddaughter." He emphasized those words, and his gaze was as sharp as a knife, as if he was trying his best to restrain his anger. "Song?" Feng Xiao was stunned. He looked at the angry old man and asked carefully, "Father, why are you looking for Qingge? Did she make you angry? That shouldn't be the case. You ran out as soon as you came out of seclusion. She hasn't seen you for many months. She couldn't have made you angry." Bang! Chapter 127. Feng Zhao's legs trembled and his entire body trembled from his furious father's yelling. Only the heavens knew that he hadn't seen his father this angry in many years. He didn't dare to ask again and only responded, Okay. Don't be angry. I'll immediately send someone to call her." As he spoke, He hurriedly went out to have the steward call his daughter over from the rear courtyard. At the same time, in Feng Chinga's courtyard, a middle-aged man quietly appeared outside her room and called out to the person inside, "Master." Feng Chinga was a little surprised when she heard the voice outside and immediately said, "Come in." The middle-aged man flashed into the room and saw her sitting at the table. He stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Grandfather Feng has been found." But as soon as he returned, he angrily called for Master to see him. "The steward is currently on his way here." This subordinate saw that the situation was a little unusual and specially came to report. Hearing this, her gaze sank and she pondered for a moment before saying, "I understand. You go out first and don't let anyone discover you." "Yes," the middle-aged man responded and left in a flash. She sat quietly in her room and pondered. Not long after, she heard the steward's voice from outside. "Young miss, Master invites you to the main hall." She stood up, opened the door, and walked out. Seeing the steward in the courtyard, she greeted him and asked, "Uncle Chung, have you found Grandfather?" "Grandfather has been found. Young miss doesn't need to worry." The steward smiled and said, "Grandfather and Master are waiting for young miss in the front hall. Young miss should quickly go over." "Okay." She nodded and walked towards the front courtyard. In the front hall, Feng Xiao took the tea brought in by a maid and placed it beside his father's hand. "Father, please drink some tea first." Old Master Feng didn't speak and only looked at the door as if he was waiting for Feng Chinga to arrive. What the hell is going on? Feng Xiao was puzzled and uneasy in his heart, but he didn't ask. Father didn't seem to want to say. Moreover, this matter seemed to be related to Chinga. Just as he was feeling apprehensive, the atmosphere in the hall became increasingly gloomy and oppressive. Finally, he heard the steward's voice from outside. Old Master, young miss is here." Hearing this, Feng Xiao was about to get up and walk out to remind her, but who knew that as soon as his but left the chair, he heard a loud shout accompanied by the sound of a table being slammed. "Sit down." He was so frightened that his legs trembled. His heart skipped a beat, and he fell back into his seat. He sat down properly and looked at his angry father with some apprehension, but he didn't expect to meet his father's furious and dignified gaze. She could only force out a smile and embarrassedly said, "Father, don't be so angry. Don't scare Chinga." His father's authority was deeply engraved in his bones. As long as his father shouted or gave him a look, he would be able to turn this dignified and mighty general into a coward. Oh no, he would immediately cower. His mighty and domineering aura was only for outsiders. In front of his family members, he could not display any mighty aura at all. Old Master Feng didn't say anything. Instead, his sharp and wise eyes landed on the figure that walked in from outside. When he saw that familiar face, his eyes narrowed slightly. He really did have two granddaughters. One's face was ruined, while the other's face was as good as new. His old eyes narrowed as he carefully sized them up from head to toe. Chapter 128. "Grandfather, father," she called out, trying her best to ease the suffocating atmosphere in the hall. She walked over to old Master Feng's side and hugged his arm with both hands, revealing a bright smile. "Grandfather, Feng girl missed you so much. You've been in seclusion for several months, and I haven't seen you for several months." There was no laughter as she expected. On the contrary, old Master Feng narrowed his eyes and stared at her. His sharp eyes seemed to see through her, causing her heart to skip a beat. "Grandfather, what's wrong?" She couldn't help but loosen her grip on his arm and took a step back, looking at him with an uneasy expression. Feng Xiao saw this and hurriedly stepped forward. "Father, Chinga is calling for you. I remember that you have a phoenix birthmark on your forearm. Take off your outer garment and show it to me." Old Master Feng's sharp eyes stared at her, and his voice was dignified, not missing the slightest trace of expression on her face. Hearing this, not only did Feng Chinga's eyes widen in astonishment, even Feng Xiao furrowed his brows. "Father, what do you mean by this? Why do you suddenly want to see Chinga's birthmark? What are you suspecting?" "Grandfather, are you suspecting that I'm not your granddaughter?" Her eyes were filled with tears of grievance, and her face was filled with sadness. Feng Xiao couldn't help but feel distressed when he saw this, and hurriedly comforted. Chinga, your grandfather didn't mean that. Don't think too much. However, old Master Feng gave a heavy snort and swept a glance at Feng Xiao before looking at Feng Chinga. He frowned and said in an unyielding tone, "Show me the phoenix birthmark." "Father, shut up." Old Master Feng sternly shouted and glared at Feng Xiao. Immediately, Feng Xiao didn't dare to say a word. Feng Chinga gently bit her lips as tears fell from her eyes. "Grandfather, don't be angry. If Grandfather wants to see the phoenix birthmark, I'll show it to Grandfather." As she spoke, she half unbuckled her belt and pulled down her coat, revealing the red phoenix birthmark on her snow-white arm. "Father, look, isn't Chinga's Feng birthmark there?" He really couldn't understand the old man. Why did he want to see Chinga's birthmark after going out for a while? Could it be that he suspected that his daughter had been swapped? One had to know that he had seen her walk around every day. Her actions, her expression, and her appearance, how could they be fake? Seeing the phoenix birthmark, old Master Feng frowned and said, "Come here." "Father." Old Master Feng didn't care about him. Instead, he stared at Feng Chinga. "Come here." This time, his voice was a bit stronger and carried an undeniable majesty. Feng Chinga gently bit her lips and glanced at him. Then, she slowly walked forward and stopped in front of him. She slightly narrowed her eyes. Old Master Feng glanced at her. He dipped his finger in some tea and rubbed it on the red phoenix birthmark. When he looked again, the red phoenix birthmark was still there. It hadn't faded or been wiped away by him. He couldn't help but frown deeper. "Grandfather, can I pull up my coat?" she asked in a slightly choked voice as she looked at old Master Feng with a hurt expression. Without waiting for old Master Feng to speak, Feng Xiao hurriedly said, "Chinga, quickly pull up your coat. Go back to your room first. I'll talk to your grandfather." "Okay." Tears fell from her eyes as she pulled up her coat and ran out. Chapter 129. Old Master Feng looked at him with a heavy gaze and said, "That's right. I suspect that she isn't my Feng lass." "How was that possible?" "Father, what did you encounter outside? Did someone tell you something? Why would you think that?" Feng Xiao couldn't accept his father suspecting his own daughter. What was going on? Looking at Feng Xiao, old Master Feng shook his head. Even his own father couldn't tell if his daughter was real or fake, so it was no wonder that his Feng lass didn't dare to come back. He stood up and took a deep breath with his hands behind his back, saying, "Sometimes a person's eyes can be blinded. There are many things that you need to use your heart to feel and use your heart to see. I, your father, have lived for so long and have eaten more salt than you have rice." He glanced at him and continued, "Even if she has Feng Lass's face and has the same phoenix birthmark as Feng Lass, she definitely isn't Feng Lass. You have to know, feelings can't lie." Seeing his father's aura change after he finished speaking and he walked out with large strides, Feng Xiao was shocked and hurriedly stopped him, asking, "Father, what do you want to do?" Old Master Feng glanced at him and said, "She isn't my Feng Lass. I want to capture her and take off her mask." Feng Xiao was stunned when he heard this, and even his voice couldn't help but become louder. "Father, you're crazy. She is Chinga, your granddaughter, your Feng Lass." He felt that his father had gone mad. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to say such words. "Humph, I think you're the one who's crazy. You can't even tell your own daughter apart, and you still have the nerve to say that you're Feng Lass's father? Do you know what kind of suffering Feng Lass has suffered? Do you know?" Thinking of his precious granddaughter's disfigured face, his throat suddenly choked up, and he glared at him with moist eyes. "Have you ever thought that if the Feng Chinga in this manner is fake, then where is the real Feng Lass? Is she suffering? Could she have suffered a mishap? You didn't. You didn't even dare to think about that possibility. Even when I told you, you didn't believe me. Tell me, with a father like you, how could my Feng Lass dare to come home?" "Father, what you said is impossible. My daughter is clear. She has always been by my side, and there's nothing wrong with her. Tell me, how could the things you said happen?" "Father, are you too tired? Or are you drunk? Why don't I help you return to the courtyard to rest? He stepped forward to help him up, but unexpectedly, with a flick of his sleeve, a strong force came over and pushed him back several meters. Bastard, just you wait. Wait. Once I've taken care of Feng Lass, I'll take care of you. Old Master Feng cursed angrily as he leaped towards Feng Qing's courtyard. Father! Feng Xiao was shocked. He cried out in surprise and hurriedly followed. However, his strength was not as strong as Grandfather Feng's, and his speed was far inferior to his. In the blink of an eye, Grandfather Feng's figure disappeared. Seeing this, he shouted, Father, don't act recklessly. Because the father and son's movements were very loud, almost everyone in the manor was alarmed. They all poked their heads out and whispered each other. What's going on? I seem to have heard the old master say that young miss is a fake. How is that possible? It was the old master who was drunk. How could young miss be a fake? Ah, a scream rang out, startling the servants who were in the middle of their discussion. Chapter 130. When Feng Xiao arrived at his daughter's courtyard, he was so frightened by the scene that his heart nearly jumped out of his chest. He saw the old master taking out a long sword from somewhere and wielding it with both hands, using his profound energy aura to wildly slash around the courtyard. His daughter, on the other hand, was so frightened that she hid to the side and cried, Father, what are you doing? He cried out in alarm and hurriedly rushed forward to snatch the sword from his father's hand so that he wouldn't hurt anyone, but who knew that the old master would also turn around and forcefully push him away. Scram! This old man wants to kill her. Kill her! Feng Zhao's face was completely drained of blood. He once again pounced forward and tightly hugged his father from behind. Father, wake up. That's Qingge. She's your granddaughter. She's not. She's not. She harmed my Feng Lass. She harmed my Feng Lass. Ah, let go. I want to kill her. Old Master Feng's eyes were bloodshot as he shouted with a crazed expression. He struggled to pounce forward. No one saw that Feng Qingge, who was hiding at the side and crying with a face full of panic, looked at old Master Feng with a trace of viciousness and excitement. That trace of viciousness and excitement flashed by so quickly that no one noticed it. She cried in panic and shouted, Father, Father, save me. Grandfather wants to kill me. Feng Xiao listened to his beloved daughter's panicked and helpless cries and then looked at his father's nearly crazed expression. Seeing that he couldn't stop it, he finally had no choice but to give in and fiercely chopped down with his hand, knocking him unconscious. Clang! Old Master Feng's body went limp and the sword in his hand fell to the ground. The entire courtyard finally calmed down because he had fainted. Steward, go invite Elder Lin over and check on father. Feng Zhao's expression was grave as he supported the old master and ordered the steward outside the courtyard. Yes, yes. The steward hurriedly responded and chased away the people who were watching the show. Then, he quickly went to invite a doctor from the manor. Only then did Feng Qingge walk over with a face full of fear. Father, what happened to grandfather? Are you hurt? He looked at her and saw that her face was full of tears. He comforted her. Don't be afraid. Father is here. No one can hurt you. You go back to your room first. Father will send your grandfather back to the courtyard. With that, he helped the unconscious old man out. Father, I'll go and take a look. She followed with small steps and said, I'm worried about grandfather. All right. Feng Xiao nodded and let her follow. Not long after the old man was placed on the bed, an old man walked in under the guidance of the butler. Master, the old man bowed to Feng Xiao. Elder Lin, quickly come over and take a look at my father. See if there's anything wrong with him. Feng Xiao hurriedly said, gesturing for him to come over. Yes. Elder Lin replied and glanced at Feng Qingge, who was beside the bed without batting an eyelid. Only then did he walk up to the bedside and check on Elder Feng. After a while, he retracted his hand and asked, Master, I wonder if there's anything wrong with Elder Feng after he returned? Feng Zhao's eyes were full of worry. He sighed and said, After father came out of seclusion, he ran out. I thought he went to the wine shop again, but I didn't expect to run into him on the street. At that time, I saw that his complexion was not good. After he came back, he threw a tantrum and even said that Chinga wasn't his granddaughter. After that, he even went to Chinga's courtyard. When I rushed over, I saw him slashing around with a sword and was so scared that my heart almost jumped out. Chapter 131. Elder Lin nodded and said, "Then that's right. Old Master Lin must have encountered some problems in his cultivation, causing his mind to be a little deranged." "What?" Feng Xiao cried out in alarm. "You're saying that he encountered some problems in his cultivation that caused his mind to be a little deranged? How is that possible? If there's a problem in his cultivation, then it's probably a qi deviation. But I've examined him, and all the profound energy in his body is normal. It's impossible for something like that to happen. Did you make a mistake in your diagnosis?" Hearing this, the old man frowned. "If Old Master doesn't believe me, you can invite someone else to treat the Old Master. But I only want to say that it's the same no matter who you invite. Moreover, it's best to lock the Old Master up. Otherwise, when he wakes up, we don't know if he'll be like before. The current him is very dangerous. Even he doesn't know what he's done. You're saying that when grandfather wakes up, it's very likely that he'll take out his sword and try to kill me?" Feng Xinga asked with a trembling voice and a pale face. Elder Lin nodded. "Amen, it's very likely." Hearing this, Feng Zhao's expression also became serious. He looked at his daughter, who was trying her best to suppress her panic, then looked at his unconscious father on the bed and couldn't help but sigh. "Let's invite a few more doctors to examine him first. Chinga, you go back to the courtyard first. Father will be fine here." "Amen." She lowered her eyes and nodded. In her heart, she knew that he wouldn't lock up the Old Master so easily. After all, he and the Old Master had a very good father-son relationship. Naturally, he wouldn't conclude that the Old Master was deranged just because of a doctor's words, much less lock up the Old Master so easily. However, it didn't matter who he invited. She would make him believe that the Old Master had gone crazy. On the other side, Feng Jiu sat in the courtyard with one hand supporting her cheek. No one knew what she was thinking. She didn't even notice that Lung Shuang had returned. "Master?" "Amen." She returned to her senses and saw her standing beside her. She asked, "You're back? Did you choose anyone?" "Yes, young Master brought 5 people back and was about to invite Master to the outer courtyard." She tied the veil around her face and slowly walked to the outer courtyard. When Guanxilin saw her, he quickly went up to her and said, "Xiao Jiu, you're here. Look, I bought 5 people, and one of them is a cook." Then he said to the people, "Raise your heads and let my sister see." Yes. Only then did they raise their heads with apprehension. When they saw the girl standing in front of them, they were stunned. However, they did not dare to look at her too presumptuously. Instead, they hurriedly lowered their eyes after a glance. Feng Jiu's gaze swept across the group. After sizing them up, he asked, "What are your names?" "Miss, please bestow names to us servants," the older female cook said. Because they were selling their bodies, they would be part of this family in the future. Naturally, they could not use their previous names. "Then let's use Qing as the generation name. You can each choose one of the 4 characters, Ping, In, and Rui. As for the kitchen maid, let's call her Qing Yang." "Thank you, miss, for bestowing names." The group of people bowed. She nodded and said to Guanxilin, "Brother, let Lung Shuang arrange their accommodations and tell him the rules. I'm a little tired after being out for the whole day, so I'll go back to my room to rest." "Okay, then you can go." He nodded and watched her leave. Then, he told Lung Shuang to help them settle down and followed after her. Chapter 132. After 2 or 3 days, Old Master Feng did not come again. Originally, Feng Jiu thought that perhaps he thought Feng Qinggu was fake after seeing her, but the more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was off. Based on Old Master Feng's attitude and tone at that time, even if he thought she was fake, he would definitely come to find her. But after waiting for 2 or 3 days, he still did not come. This was strange. Thus, she left the room and ordered Lung Shuang, who was sitting cross-legged in the courtyard. "Lung Shuang, go find out if anything has happened in the Feng Manor these past 2 days." Yes. Although Lung Shuang was puzzled, He did not ask any questions and left. She went to the courtyard and sat down, waiting for Lung Shuang to come back with the results. If this matter was not taken care of properly, she would not be able to calm down and cultivate. Originally, she did not plan on returning to the Feng Manor so quickly, but the current situation— Xiao Jiao, Qingyang made some sweet soup. I brought a bowl over for you. Try it, the taste is not bad. Guan Shilin smiled as he walked in with a bowl of sweet soup in his hands. Thank you, brother. She smiled and stood up to receive it. Guan Shilin sat down at the stone table and said, Xiao Jiao, I came here to tell you something. What is it? She asked as she drank the sweet soup. He hesitated for a moment, then said, I want to go to the black market to fight. Hearing this, she frowned. You want to use that to make money? You won't earn much at all. Also, if you meet an opponent stronger than you, you won't even have the chance to admit defeat. I think that, aside from making money, that kind of place can also increase my battle strength. Right now, what I lack the most is actual combat experience. So, I want to accumulate experience first, then participate in the glorious Sun Country's triennial selection and become one of the top 10. Only then will I have the opportunity to enter the Academy of Stars and Clouds. Academy of Stars and Clouds. She searched in her mind and said, Is it the Cultivation Study Palace that is rated as a 7-star academy? I remember that the selection is very strict. Moreover, it's a selection every 3 years. Even for a small 9th-tier country like the Dazzling Country, it seems that after so many years, no one has been able to enter the Academy of Stars and Clouds. Yes, the College of Stars and Clouds is very strict when it comes to recruiting students. Furthermore, it is located in the Green Tongue Kingdom, a level 6 middle kingdom. Only those who are in the top 10 of the glorious Sun Kingdom will have the chance to try their luck there. Although I know it will be difficult, I still want to try. Furthermore, only by leaving the glorious Sun Kingdom will I be able to find my father in the future. Hearing this, she nodded in understanding. What he said was indeed correct. If one wanted to go from a small 9th-tier country to a higher-tier country, one would only be allowed to enter if their strength was recognized. Otherwise, even if one was a prince of a country, they could only be rejected outside the city gates. Take Morong Yixian as an example. He was a prince of the glorious Sun Country and was also a proud son of the heavens. Originally, he had the opportunity to enter the College of Stars and Clouds to cultivate. However, an accident happened 3 years ago and caused him to miss the opportunity. He brushed past the College of Stars and Clouds. If he wanted to enter the College of Stars and Clouds again, he could only wait for the triennial selection. Since you have already set your goal, then go and do it. However, you must remember that you must be careful when you fight with others. If you meet an opponent that is too strong, you must admit defeat immediately. You must know that losing a competition is not shameful. If you lose your life, then it will be too late for regrets. Yes, I know. Chapter 133. Master. Lung Shuang called out, then nodded to Guan Shilin. Young master, how is it? Fengjiu looked at her and asked. Something has indeed happened in the Feng family these past 2 days. Elder Feng has been locked up. Locked up. Her brow slightly furrowed, and her voice unconsciously became louder. Yes, because it's a matter within the Feng Manor. Very few people outside know about it. They only know that in the past 2 days, General Feng has invited quite a few famous doctors into the manor. They all diagnosed Elder Feng as having a demonic illness and said that he is in danger of attacking people, so he has been locked up. After hearing this, Fengjiu's face sank, and he did not speak for a while. This made Guan Shilin feel very strange. He looked at Lung Shuang and then looked at Fengjiu. In the end, he could not help but ask, Xiao Jiao, why are you asking about the Feng family? Hearing this, she looked at him and saw that he had a curious expression. Even Lung Shuang looked at her. After pausing for a moment, she said, Perhaps I should tell you about this matter. The two's hearts jumped as their gazes fell on her body. They always knew that she had a secret, but she did not say it, so they did not ask. I also have another identity, and that is Feng Zhao's daughter, Feng Qinga. What? Hearing her say this, It was like a sudden clap of thunder that set off waves in their hearts. You were Fengqinga? Then what about the Fengqing we met that day? Who is she? Guan Shilin's eyes widened in astonishment, and his face was filled with shock. But when he thought about it, Xiao Jio would not lie to him. Thinking back to that day, he felt that Fengqinga was similar to Xiao Jio, and hearing her say it now, he felt that it was too inconceivable. Even Leng Shuang, who had always been cold, had an expression of shock. If Master was Fengqinga, then it would explain why she was so concerned about the Feng family's matters. However, if Master was the Feng Manor's young miss, Fengqinga, then was the fake Fengqinga the one who ruined Master's appearance? Her name is Su Ruiyan. I picked her up from the roadside when she was just a few years old, and she has always been by my side. However, it's hard to fathom a person's heart. She replaced my identity, scratched my face, and had someone sell me to a brothel. She was even afraid that I wouldn't die, so she fed me poison. Her voice was calm, as if she was talking about someone else. However, Guan Shilin and Leng Shuang clenched their fists tightly when they heard what she said. Their hearts ached for Su Ruiyun, and at the same time, they wished they could kill that vicious woman with their own hands. Feng Jiao drank a mouthful of the sweet soup that had already cooled down. She revealed a bright smile and said, "However, no matter how much she calculated, she would never have guessed that I would still be alive, much less that I have already returned." Xiao Jiao, you didn't return to the Feng family. Was it because you were afraid that your face would be ruined and your father and grandfather wouldn't be able to recognize you? Guan Shilin looked at her with heartache. His heart twisted into a ball. When they first met in Jiufu Forest, she had fought against a pack of wolves by herself. He still remembered that ruthlessness and killing intent. He had never been able to figure out what kind of family could raise a child like her, but at this moment, he understood everything. It wasn't that she wanted to grow, but that she was forced to grow. If she wasn't ruthless, then she wouldn't have been able to survive. My face is ruined, but when I met my grandfather on the streets a few days ago, he immediately recognized me. Thinking of that drunken old master phone, she couldn't help but reveal a smile. Chapter 134. Could it be that the rumor that the Feng master has gone mad this time was caused by Su Ruiyan? Guan Shilin's eyes widened. He felt that woman was too scary. Since she stole Xiao Jiao's identity, she did not treat her family as family and even schemed to harm them. That kind of woman should be hacked to pieces. She pondered for a bit and nodded. Grandfather couldn't have suddenly become like that after returning home. I think it must be her doing. I'll go take a look tonight. You want to sneak into the Feng Manor? But a place like the Feng Manor must be heavily guarded. I'm afraid it won't be easy to get in, he said with some worry, then continued. Besides, if you're caught, what if they think you're an assassin and kill you? You don't need to worry about that. With my current strength, sneaking into the Feng Manor is no problem. Her voice was filled with confidence. Looking at him, she said, I'll take care of this myself. You don't need to worry. We'll talk about it after I visit the Feng Manor tonight. Then you must be careful. Guan Shilin worriedly said, Master, do you want me to go with you? Or provide support outside? Leng Shuang asked. No need. She stood up and said to the two, You two wait at home. I'm going back to my room to cultivate. You don't need to call me for dinner. After saying this, she turned around to go back to her room. Then she stopped and looked at Leng Shuang. My brother is going to the black market arena. Go tell them to take care of him later. Yes. Leng Shuang replied. After watching her enter her room, he looked at Guan Shilin. Young master, you're going to the arena? That's right. I want to go there and test my skills. His voice was filled with eagerness. His eyes lit up as he said, Also, I want to enter the Academy of Stars and Clouds. That's why I want to enter the top 10 in the glorious Sun Country in the competition held every 3 years. The Academy of Stars and Clouds accepts students every 3 years. Right now, you have 1 year to prepare. As she said this, she looked at him and said, However, it's very strict. Elites from all over the country are gathered in one place. Are you sure you can enter the Academy of Stars and Clouds in 1 year? I will definitely enter. His voice was filled with determination. His eyebrows were filled with confidence. After returning to her room, Fengjiu entered the space. When night, the phone. They only saw Feng Xiao, who was sitting on the main seat. After hearing Murong Yixian's intentions, his face turned ashen. He angrily slammed his palm on the table and roared loudly. Say that again. Murong Yixian's handsome face was filled with guilt and apology. He stood up and said seriously, Uncle Xiao, I know it's hard for you to accept, but this is something I've decided after careful consideration. I've also told Qinggu about this. Chapter 135. Lessen the harm to her? Don't you know that you're already harming her by bringing up breaking off the engagement? Feng Xiao glared at him angrily and stood up to criticize. You two can be considered childhood sweethearts and loved each other since you were young. I originally thought that you two would get married this year, but now you actually want to break off the engagement. Tell me, are you worthy of Qinggu? Fengjiu, who was on the roof, looked at the furious Feng Xiao. This was her father, a father who loved his daughter as much as his own life. However, because of this excessive pampering, he never suspected that his daughter had changed. In his opinion, no matter what his daughter did, it was the best. Towards him, she really couldn't describe how she felt. Was she disappointed? She couldn't be. After all, he didn't know that she had been swapped, right? No matter how she looked at it. He was a good father, a father who loved his daughter dearly. She took a deep look at him before she shifted her gaze away, and her gaze landed on Murong Yixian. She didn't think that he would actually come to break off the engagement. However, this had nothing to do with her right now. She should first find out where her grandfather was locked up. Carefully moving the tile back to its original position, she took a deep breath and quietly left, heading towards the backyard. Relying on the memories in her mind, she was very familiar with the Feng manor and easily arrived at her grandfather's courtyard. In her opinion, even if the old man was locked up because of his madness, he could only be locked up in his courtyard. After all, with her father's filial piety to her grandfather, it was impossible for him to mistreat him. Let me out. Let me out. This old man will kill you. You're a vicious woman. Vicious woman. Before she even got close, she heard the old man's roar from inside the room. Not long after, Serene, dressed in a blue dress, walked out of the room. As she closed the door, she pretended to say to the two Phoenix guards, Grandfather's health isn't good. You must look after him carefully. Young miss, don't worry. This subordinate will take good care of the old master. The two Phoenix guards said calmly, I'll come back tomorrow. She nodded, then left with light steps. Watching her leave, the two Phoenix guards saw that there was no one around and couldn't help but say, Why do you think the old master always scolds young miss? How dare you say she's a fake? Didn't you say that many famous doctors were invited, but the final diagnosis was the same? Everyone says that the old master has gone mad. Tell me, if that's not the case, why would he want to kill young miss for no reason? The Phoenix guard scratched his head and said in confusion, But this is very strange. The old master was clearly fine before. How did he suddenly become like this? I keep feeling that something is strange, but I can't tell what it is. Then don't worry so much. Just protect the old master and don't let anything happen to him. As soon as the Phoenix guard finished speaking, the two of them let out a muffled groan and fainted on the ground. Fengjiu, dressed in black, jumped into the courtyard. After looking around, he quickly pushed open the door and walked in. However, when she saw the old master inside, her eyes reddened. She quickly ran over and called out in a choked voice, Grandfather. Chapter 136. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Let me out. Let me out. The Feng master roared crazily as if he had completely lost his mind. The profound energy in his entire body surged, causing people to not dare to get too close to him. Grandfather, it's me. I'm the phone girl. Seeing the old man suffer like this because of her, tears flowed down uncontrollably. Her heart clenched tightly in pain. At this moment, she really wanted to hang Serene up and cut off his flesh to let him bleed. to vent the hatred in her heart. "I'll kill you." Ah. Seeing that he had completely lost his mind, she could only endure the pain in her heart. Taking out a silver needle, she injected profound energy into it and shot it at him. "Kill!" The Feng Master's voice weakened and he fainted. The profound energy in his body also dissipated. She quickly walked forward and came to the bedside to check his pulse. With this check, her heart sank. Taking out a metal wire from her space, she undid the locks on his hands and feet. Then, after hitting his unconscious acupuncture point, she sent him into her space. Only then did she quickly leave. Unexpectedly, as soon as she left the room, she met the housekeeper who was walking into the courtyard. "Who's there?" The housekeeper shouted loudly. Seeing the two phone guards lying on the ground and the black-clothed man entering the phone master's room, he was shocked and immediately shouted, "Someone come! Someone come quickly! There's an assassin!" At the same time that he spoke, he took a step forward and pounced forward, wanting to capture the black-clothed man. "Damn it!" Feng Jiao cursed in her heart. She didn't think that someone would come at this time. Seeing the housekeeper pounce over, she immediately leaped up and stepped on the housekeeper's shoulder to fly up to the roof. Just as she was about to quickly leave the Feng manor, she didn't think that the housekeeper's shout would alert everyone in the manor, especially Feng Xiao and Murong Yixian in the front hall. "Thief, where are you running to?" A deep voice filled with profound energy came over like a tiger's roar. The powerful, profound energy caused the air to tremble slightly. Feng Jiao turned her head to look and saw her father raising his chi and flying over. His tiger fist carried a powerful hidden force as it struck out. The force of his fist brought along a wind blade that streaked through the air, making a whooshing sound. She naturally couldn't fight with him, not to mention whether or not she could beat him. It wouldn't be good if she accidentally hurt him. At that moment, she turned her body and quickly dodged his heavy fist attack. She didn't want to fight him head-on. Instead, she chose to quickly retreat and leaped out of the residence. "Catch that thief!" Feng Xiao shouted. When he saw Murong Yixian standing in front of the man in black, he hurriedly turned around and walked into the room. When he didn't see his father's figure in the room, his heart sank. "Where's the old master?" The housekeeper hurriedly followed, but when he saw that there was no one in the room, he couldn't help but be startled. He hurriedly said, "Just now when this old servant entered the courtyard, I only saw the man in black come out of the old master's room, but I didn't see the old master. Search! Find them for me right now!" He shouted loudly and looked at the two people fighting on the roof. "You must catch that thief." It wasn't good for her to fight with her father, but she wouldn't be polite with Murong Yixian. Moreover, she had long wanted to compete with Murong Yixian, who was known as the #1 genius of Glorious Sun Country. Thus, every move she made was ruthless and filled with killing intent. "Xiao! Bang bang!" Seeing that the man in black skills were not inferior to Murong Yixian's, Feng Xiao was secretly shocked. Chapter 137. His heart was filled with doubt. While he was deep in thought, he was interrupted by a voice. "Father, what happened?" Feng Qingge quickly arrived at his side. Seeing the two figures fighting on the roof, she couldn't help but widen her eyes. "An assassin actually came into our home? What did he come here for? Where's grandfather? Is grandfather all right?" "Your grandfather is gone." Feng Zhao's brows slightly furrowed. Her eyes were filled with worry that could not be hidden. Father's body was like that, yet now he was gone. Who took him away? What was that person's goal? What? Grandfather is gone? She was shocked, and her heart was filled with doubt. How could the old man be gone? Could it be that he was taken away by someone? But what could they do by taking him away? Also, to be able to take someone away from the Feng Manor, as if there was no one there, wasn't that person's skill too strange? Xiao! Bang bang! As their fists and legs collided, the sound of air currents and heavy sounds could be heard. The two figures, one black and one white, were both suffused with profound energy aura. Both of their attacks were merciless, and every move was ruthless, causing the people below to involuntarily tremble in fear. While he was inwardly shocked by the black-clothed man's skills, he saw the black-clothed man turn his body and kick sideways. The leg that swept past even had a visible swift and fierce airflow condensed as it kicked towards Murong Yixin at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. Murong Yixin groaned. His body lost balance and fell from the roof to the ground. He quickly adjusted himself and balanced his body as he landed. However, because of the speed and force of the fall, he still could not help but take a few steps back before he could stand firm. After he steadied himself, he looked up again and saw the black figure on the roof sweep over him. That gaze actually made him feel a bit familiar. For a moment, he was stunned and absent-minded. Quickly chase after him. Feng Xiao saw the black-clothed figure quickly leave. That black-clothed figure quickly disappeared into the night. She immediately ordered the guards to chase after him. With the speed of the Feng Manor's guards, how could they catch up to Feng Jiu? Ever since she left the Feng Manor, she did not stop and quickly left the people behind her far behind. Only when she returned to the vicinity of the courtyard did she bring out the old man from her space. Supporting him, she leapt into the manor and into the inner courtyard. Xiao Jia, what do you think? Guan Shilin and Lung Shuang were waiting for her in the courtyard. As soon as they saw her return, they hurried to welcome her. He's all right. She handed him over to him and said, help him into the room first. Lung Shuang, you keep watching the courtyard. Yes. Lung Shuang answered and stood guard in the courtyard. After entering the room, Guan Shilin placed the old Master Feng on the bed. Looking at the unconscious and emaciated old Master Feng, he could not help but turn to Feng Jiu. Xiao Jiu, what happened to your grandfather? Why are you so haggard? Feng Jiu walked out from behind the screen. She had already changed into her casual clothes. After washing her hands, she walked over and said, Brother, give me a basin of water first. As she spoke, she sat down on the side of the bed and once again examined her grandfather's body. She then took out her silver needles and placed them to the side. Guan Shilin fetched the water and placed it to the side. He then stood guard by the bed and did not disturb her. He watched as she took out her silver needles and pierced all 10 of her grandfather's fingers. She then placed them in the water and squeezed out the blood. Seeing that the water in the basin had been dyed black by the blood, he could not help but suck in a cold breath. That evil woman actually dared to use poison on your grandfather. Chapter 138. Change the basin of water again. All right. Guan Shilin once again brought over a basin of clear water. After changing the basin of blood, this time, the blood that flowed out gradually returned to its original bright red color. He asked, has the poison been cured? There's still some poison left. Seeing that it was about time, she gestured for him to move the basin away. She wiped the blood off her hands, covered him with a blanket, and walked over to the table. Big brother, when the sun rises, go and get the medicine according to this list. Get the medicine from different places. She wrote down a prescription and handed it to him. Guan Shilin took it and glanced at it, then nodded. All right, I'll go get the medicine when the sun rises. At the same time, the Feng family was in chaos. Feng Xiao led people to search for the old master, and Murong Yixin also joined in to help. That night, it could be said that everyone was in a state of panic. Because of their large movements, quite a few people knew that the old master of the Feng Manor had been kidnapped. It was just that everyone found it strange. Saying that Feng Qingge had been kidnapped was still acceptable. After all, she was the Feng Manor's beloved daughter, and she was an absolute beauty. But instead of kidnapping an absolute beauty, they kidnapped an old man. Also, they had recently been diagnosed with a demonic illness. Don't you think it was strange? Thus, there were many discussions. They wondered if it was an enemy of the Feng family, or if it was an enemy of the old master, Feng, who did it. As for the Feng Manor, in Feng Qingji's courtyard, a middle-aged man once again came to her room. Master, the identity of that brother and sister has been investigated. Speak. That man is called Guan Shilin. He is a member of the second branch of the Guan family in Yunyu City. However, a few days ago, he had a falling out with the Guan family and asked to leave the family to set up his own residence. He is currently living in a residence in the southern part of the city. As for the woman, we couldn't find out where she came from. We only know that she is Guanxiline's sworn sister. No one has seen her face because she has always used a veil to cover it. Hearing this, a murderous look flashed through Su Ruoyun's eyes. A foxy woman of unknown origin could make Murong Yixin lose his soul. She was really capable. Get a few people from the poison sect to kill that Guan guy. As for that woman, capture her and bring her back to me. I want to see what kind of face she has under that veil. Her voice was filled with viciousness, and it was especially horrifying in this quiet night. Yes, the middle-aged man replied respectfully. Also, find out which force kidnapped the old man. If you find them, deal with them directly outside. If he was sensible, she wouldn't have killed him. However, he was already so old, yet he still had a pair of disgusting shrewdness in his eyes. Since they were interfering with her business, then they shouldn't blame her for not considering their relationship. Yes, the middle-aged man replied again. When he saw her wave her hand, indicating for him to leave, he turned around and left. The next morning, when old Master Feng slowly woke up, he saw a person lying on the side of the bed. He turned his head slightly and saw that disfigured face. When he thought of the woman's words, his heart clenched in pain, and he couldn't help but tear up the pillow. Seeing her disfigured face already made him feel heartache and guilt. But when he heard that woman say that she had used a knife to slice Feng Girl's face open, that heartache made him unable to suppress it and turned into anger and grief. Chapter 139. His skinny hand trembled as he reached out, wanting to gently touch the scars on her face. Unexpectedly, before he could touch her, she woke up. Feng Jiu suddenly woke up and sat up vigilantly. When he saw that was the old man who had woken up and was reaching out his trembling hand, he relaxed. Seeing that the old man was crying silently, he couldn't help but be startled. "Grandfather, why are you crying?" She raised her hand to wipe away his tears and asked, "Are you still feeling unwell? Come, let me help you sit up." Her vigilance made the old man's heart clench. How much suffering did she have to go through to have such a vigilant reaction? Was she afraid of danger and didn't dare to sleep? Feng Lass, "Grandfather, grandfather has let you down." Tears flowed down his old face, filled with regret and pain. If he had known that such a thing would happen after a few months of closed-door cultivation, he would never have gone into closed-door cultivation. Hearing this, she revealed a smile and helped him sit up on the bed. She softly said, "Grandfather, don't be like this. I'm fine now, really fine." In order to divert his attention and not let him continue to blame himself, she asked, "Grandfather, what happened after you went back? You inhaled a stimulant drug and your body was poisoned." "Stimulant?" The old man wiped away his tears and thought for a moment. His voice was filled with resentment as he said, "It was that woman. At that time, I went to the courtyard to catch her, but she sprinkled some powder on me when I wasn't paying attention. I accidentally inhaled it, and she said—" At this point, his voice paused, and he hesitated for a moment. "She said that my face was cut by her. Grandfather was angered by her torture." That was probably the only thing she could think of. Otherwise, the old man wouldn't have fallen into her trap so easily. Old Master Feng nodded. "That's right. I was very angry when I heard it. I only felt a fire rush to my head, and I lost control of my rationality." As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and asked in surprise, "That's right. How did I get here? Wasn't I locked up?" Although he lost control of his rationality at that time, his consciousness was still somewhat clear. However, he didn't know how he got here. Hearing this, she smiled and her bright eyes flashed with a sly look. "Of course it was me who brought grandfather out." But, seeing that he still wanted to ask, she interrupted him and said with a smile, "All right, grandfather, since we're already out, you don't have to think too much. You still have some poison left in your body, so you should recuperate first. I'll go get a bowl of porridge for grandfather to eat." Old Master Feng was slightly startled when he saw her turn around and walk out. Bring him out of the Feng manor? That was impossible, right? No one was clearer than him on what sort of precautions the Feng manor had taken. The Lung Shuang in the courtyard saw her coming out and went to greet her. Master, Lung Shuang, go to the kitchen and see if Qingyang has finished cooking the porridge. Bring some over. Yes. She answered and went to the kitchen. After Lung Shuang left, Guanxilin walked in and said, Xiao Jiao, I bought the medicine and told Qingyang to boil it. That's right. When I went out to buy the medicine this morning, I saw the Feng Manors people looking all over for someone. Do you think they'll find us here? Don't worry. Even if they find us here, it'll be fine. Just pay more attention to their movements during this period of time. Chapter 140. He's awake. Feng Shilin turned around and said, He's been feeling guilty and blaming himself for not protecting me. She sighed softly and said, Let's go. Let's go in and see him. I'll introduce you to him. Okay. Guanxilin nodded and followed her into the room. When they entered the room, they saw him leaning against the bed, thinking about something. Seeing this, Feng Jiao called out, Grandfather. The old man came back to his senses and looked at the two people who walked in. His gaze naturally fell on Guanxilin, and he secretly sized him up. Little Feng, he is Junior. Guanxilin greets Grandfather Feng. Guanxilin stepped forward and bowed, revealing a bright and masculine smile. Grandfather, he's my elder brother with a different surname. I usually call him Big Brother. Feng Shilin stepped forward and took his hand. He's helped me a lot. He's a good person. The old man nodded and said to Guanxilin, Little brother, thank you for taking care of my little Feng. Grandfather Feng, you're too kind. Guanxilin was a little embarrassed. When had he ever helped Xiao Jiao? It was Xiao Jiao who helped him take care of him more often. Master, Lung Shuang called out from outside. Come in. Feng Jiao called out from inside the room. The old man looked in the direction of the voice and saw a woman in black walking in with something in her hands. He secretly sized her up. Before he had time to think carefully, he heard little Feng speak. Grandfather, she's Lung Shuang. She's my attendant. The old man's heart skipped a beat. Attendant? The aura of this woman in black was very stable. She was not very old, but her cultivation was outstanding among her peers. Guanxilin was also outstanding. How did little Feng know these two people? Although he had doubts in his heart, he did not immediately ask. Instead, he observed them. Feng Jiao stepped forward with a bowl of porridge and said, Grandfather, your body is weak because of the poison. You can't eat anything too good, so I asked someone to cook some porridge. Have some. Okay. Old Master Feng nodded and took the bowl. Grandpa, you can do it yourself. Seeing this, Guanxilin said, Xiao Jiao will go out first. I'll go to the kitchen to see if Qingyang has finished brewing the medicine for Grandpa Feng. After saying this, he walked out with Lung Shuang and closed the door. After they left, old Master Feng asked, Little Feng, how did you know them? It's a long story. I'll just pick the main points and tell it to Grandpa. She smiled. While watching him eat the porridge, she told him about how she met them. However, she reversed the story of how she fought the wolves alone to save Guanxilin. After she finished, she saw him nod and say that she must thank him properly when he recovered. She smiled and said that he did not need to thank her because they were family. In the end, she told him to take the medicine and sleep for a while. However, because of the poison in his body and the stimulant in his blood, he was a little restless after he fell asleep. She had to use a silver needle to prick his sleeping acupoint so that he could sleep well. In the evening, Guanxilin came to the courtyard. Xiao Jiao, is your grandfather awake? He fell asleep after drinking the medicine. What's wrong? She looked at Guanxilin, who had a serious expression on his face and was a little confused. Someone is watching us. He frowned slightly, but we don't know who it is. What do you mean? Chapter 141. Guanxilin said in a low voice, Someone is keeping watch outside the mansion. When I went out, I found someone watching us in the dark. Hearing this, she paused for a moment, then said, You and Lung Shuang just do what you usually do. Go out when you need to. Also, tell Qingyang and the maids in the front yard to go back to their rooms when it gets dark. Don't come out if they hear anything. Okay, I'll go and tell them now. You have to be careful here too, he said worriedly. I know. She smiled and nodded. She wanted to know who was watching them this time. After all, ever since the Sioux mansion was destroyed, the various powers in Yunhua City had been well-behaved and didn't dare to cause trouble. Although she didn't know who it was, she believed that she would find out soon enough. At night, the mansion was quiet. The maids in the front yard had already locked their doors and windows and gone to sleep. In the backyard, after Fengjiu sealed her grandfather's sleeping acupoint, he went to sit in the middle of the yard and played chess with Guan Shilin. Leng Shuang stayed in his room and didn't come out. Perhaps they felt that the people in the house were nothing to be afraid of, so after the 8 black figures quietly sneaked in, they rushed straight to the master's courtyard in the backyard. As soon as they entered the backyard, they jumped over the wall and saw 2 people sitting in the courtyard playing chess. Kill the man and bring the woman back, the leader of the men in black ordered in a low voice. As soon as he finished, several figures flashed out from the dark and attacked the 2 people in the yard with swords in their hands. After hearing the men in black, Guan Shilin and Fengjiu looked at each other. Under the veil, Fengjiu whispered something and then stood up in panic. "Ah, brother," she shouted and hid behind Guan Shilin. "Sister, don't be afraid. I'll protect you." "Huh!" Guan Shilin shouted and punched the 2 men in black with all his strength. With 2 loud bangs and the sound of bones breaking, the 2 men in black flew out and crashed into the corner of the wall. They didn't even have time to scream before they died. Seeing him take care of the 2 men in black with 1 punch, Fengjiu couldn't help but twitch her mouth. He had clearly told him to hold back a little, but he had used all of his strength. With his current fist strength, a punch with all of his strength was not something that anyone could withstand. Guan Shilin shouted as he stood in front of Fengjiu to protect her. However, he did not forget their plan. When he saw one of the black-clothed men coming at them with a sword, he pushed Fengjiu aside and jumped behind the 2 men. Then he punched them twice. This time, the necks of the 2 black-clothed men were shattered by his punches. "Ah!" A blood-curdling scream sounded, followed by the sound of the 2 men in black falling to the ground. Seeing this, the leader's face turned ugly. He stared at Fengjiu fiercely, and in the next moment, he jumped over Guan Shilin to capture her. In his opinion, that man was too strong and not suitable for a head-on confrontation. But this woman was different. She didn't have any profound energy fluctuations and was just an ordinary person. Since Master ordered to capture her, then he would capture her and bring her back. "Ah, brother, save me." Fengjiu cried out in alarm. She felt a pair of hands tightly clasping her neck, and in the next moment, she was lifted out. Chapter 142. Sister, Guan Shilin exclaimed. Because he was being held back by the remaining men, he was unable to catch up. His face was filled with anxiety as he shouted, "Let her go." The black-clothed men tried to stop him again. Seeing that the leader of the black-clothed men had disappeared, the anxiety on Guan Shilin's face dissipated. He glanced sharply at the black-clothed men and sneered. "Do you think you can stop me with just a few of you? Don't you know how strong you are?" As soon as his voice fell, his figure suddenly attacked like a ghost. The powerful and vigorous profound strength aura all over his body surged, causing his body to faintly float with a frightening power. At the place where he swung out his fist, it formed a swift and fierce air current, causing the few black-clothed men's faces to change. Not good. They wanted to retreat, but they were not as fast as Guan Shilin. One of the men in front of them was punched in the chest by him. Immediately, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. The man flew out and fell to the ground. His body twitched for a moment before he stopped breathing. The other man was grabbed by the neck. His whole body was lifted off the ground, and he struggled. With a cracking sound, the man's throat was broken before he could even scream. "Retreat! Quickly retreat!" One of the men exclaimed. His expression changed greatly. He did not even dare to continue fighting and turned to leave. "Since you're here, do you think you can still leave?" Guan Shilin snorted coldly. He finished off the men in a few moves. Looking at the bodies in the courtyard, he turned to Leng Shuang, who was guarding the old master in the room, and said, "Leng Shuang, I'll leave this to you. I'll follow them and have a look." Okay. Lung Shuang opened the door and looked at the blood-stained courtyard without even blinking. As for the other side, the person in the lead brought Feng Jiu to a house. As soon as he entered the house, 7 or 8 black-clothed figures walked out to greet him. One of them couldn't help but be surprised when he saw only Feng Jiu had returned. Why are you the only one left? Where are the others? That Guanxilin is stronger than I thought. The others were probably killed by him. Fortunately, I caught this woman. The man in black who was holding Feng Jiu pushed her forward and watched as she staggered and fell to the ground. Who are you? Why did you catch me? Her voice trembled as she looked at the people around her with fear and panic. We lost a few brothers to catch this woman. I really don't know what's so special about her. One of the men in black stared at Feng Jiu on the ground. Another man in black revealed a strange smile and said, "Tear off her veil and see her true appearance." No one has seen her true appearance until now. I really want to know just how beautiful she is. Just as he was about to make a move, a middle-aged man walked out. Upon seeing him, the black-clothed men in the courtyard immediately turned respectful. "Greetings, Left Protector." Feng Jiu raised her eyes and looked at the man in panic. When she saw the middle-aged man, she quickly lowered her head. Her half-closed eyes flashed with a cold, murderous aura, and the corners of her mouth under the veil curled up slightly. An old acquaintance. Although Su Riyun was the one who disfigured her face, this middle-aged man had helped her a lot. She did not expect to meet him today. It was really a case of searching high and low for something, only to find it without any effort. Chapter 143. Yes, the man in black responded. He had long wanted to remove her veil to see her true face, and now he finally had the chance. Seeing the man in black striding over, Feng Jiu's hand pressed on her calf without leaving a trace. She looked towards the middle-aged man and stared at him with her eyes slightly curved, as if she was smiling. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's brows furrowed even deeper, feeling that this woman was very strange. Just as he was about to warn them, he saw the woman who had fallen to the ground suddenly leap up. A dagger with a cold glint twirled in her hand, and in the next moment, the sharp blade was suffused with a cold, murderous aura as it attacked the man in black in front of her. "Be careful!" A stern shout rang out, and the surrounding men in black instantly reacted, only to see the man in black who was bending over to pull off the woman's veil stiffen and fall down with a muffled groan. Bang! You. The man in black who had abducted her earlier widened his eyes in astonishment as he stared in disbelief at the woman whose aura had changed abruptly. The previous frailty had been replaced by fierceness. Originally, she did not have a trace of profound energy aura, but at this moment, she was just standing there and her body was surging with a strong, profound energy that was visible to the naked eye. That profound energy aura was even more intense than any one of them. Those eyes, which were originally filled with panic and fear, were now slightly narrowed as a demonic and ostentatious aura flickered in her eyes. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not even dare to believe that the woman in front of him was the same person as the frail-looking woman from earlier. Feng Jiu stood there, fiddling with an exquisite and sharp dagger in her hand. Her half-narrowed gaze swept past the men in black and finally landed on the middle-aged man. "I didn't expect to meet an old acquaintance. What a surprise." Hearing this, the middle-aged man's voice deepened as a glint flashed across his eyes. "Old acquaintance? Since it's an old acquaintance, why is your distinguished self wearing a veil and not daring to meet others?" Hee, she chuckled. Her bell-like laughter was crisp and pleasant to the ear, appearing extremely clear in this tranquil night. His laughter faded, and his voice carried 70% carelessness and 30% arrogance. "It's not that I don't dare to meet people, but that you don't have the qualifications to see my face." She swept her gaze across the courtyard and said, "This shouldn't be your base, right? I'm curious as to how many hidden forces Su Ruiyun has." Hearing this, the middle-aged man's eyes narrowed and his heart was filled with shock. He took a step back and stared at her with a sharp and vicious gaze. as if he wanted to see through the face under the veil. "It's you? You're not dead yet?" There were not many people who knew about this matter. This woman was actually that Fengxinga. It was no wonder that he found her figure somewhat familiar. It turned out to be the woman they all thought was dead. But how did she change so much in just a few months? That fierce and bloodthirsty demonic aura, as well as the confidence and frivolity that emanated from her body. If she hadn't said those words, he wouldn't have been able to guess who she was. He was even more unable to recognize that this woman was actually Fengxinga. How can I take revenge on you when I'm dead? Chapter 144. Hearing this, the middle-aged man threw his head back and laughed. "Ha ha ha ha! What a joke! Do you think you can keep me here? You're too naive." He stared at her with a malicious look on his face. He pulled out a long sword from his waist and said darkly, "Escape? You alone aren't enough to scare me away. On the contrary, you won't be so lucky this time. Sister, I'll help you." Guanxilin, who had followed the signal left by Fengjiu, leaped onto the wall of the house and looked at the people in the courtyard. After sizing them up, he said, "You deal with that old man. Leave the rest to me." As soon as he finished speaking, he leaped up and waved the sword in his hand. A biting cold sword aura instantly attacked the men in black in the courtyard. Seeing that he had followed her, the corners of her lips curled up under the veil. She didn't forget to tell him, "Brother, leave a few alive for me this time. Don't kill them all." "No problem." His voice was brimming with fighting spirit. The sharp sword in his hand was originally aimed at the black-clothed man's throat, but after hearing her words, the tip of the sword changed direction with a swoosh, aiming at the other party's body. "You still dare to chase me here? Brothers, let's kill him." When the black-clothed man saw him coming towards him with a sharp sword in his hand, he immediately shouted loudly. The people around him responded in a low voice. The 8 of them quickly surrounded him and stabbed at him with the tips of their swords. The surging xianqi in their bodies, the bloodthirsty killing intent, and the sharp sword aura from the tips of their swords whistled in the courtyard. 8 against 1, no matter how one looked at it, the 8 of them would win. Therefore, the middle-aged man only glanced at them and didn't pay them any more attention. Instead, his malicious gaze fell on the woman in front of him. Fengjiu glanced at Guanxilin and then looked away. He wasn't worried that the man in black would be killed by the men in black. After all, he had not been cultivating for nothing all this time. Her gaze fell on the middle-aged man in front of her. At the same time, she mobilized the dark force in her body and infused it into the dagger in her hand. In the next moment, her figure flashed and swept towards the target in front of her. The blade in her hand brought out a sharp aura that cut through the air and collided with the opponent's long sword. Clang! The middle-aged man blocked her attack with his sword and sneered. "You want to fight me? You're still too inexperienced." Exerting force, the long sword in his hand turned and flew towards her. Whoosh! Whoosh! Fengjiu dodged to the side and rushed forward at the same time. The dagger in his hand cut through Fengjiu's sleeve and stabbed into his flesh, and the smell of blood spread out. She only heard him groan as the sharp sword came at her. She immediately used the sharp sword to block it and lifted her leg to kick. Under his astonished and aghast gaze, the leg that contained the hidden strength of the profound energy landed on his chest, and he was suddenly sent flying. Yes, he let out a muffled groan as he fell back. He felt the blood vessels in his chest churning, and a mouthful of blood rushed up to his throat. He steadied himself and looked up. His eyes were filled with disbelief and shock as he looked at the woman in front of him who had attacked so viciously. He asked with some uncertainty, "Are you really Fengxinga?" If it was Fengxinga, how could she have such skills in just a few short months? If it wasn't Fengxinga, then why was her figure so similar? Could it be that she had a fortuitous encounter in the past few months? Thinking of this, his eyes flashed. A fortuitous encounter. Chapter 145. Seeing the gleam in his eyes, Fengjiu sneered, "You'll find out soon enough whether or not I am." As soon as she finished speaking, Her movement technique changed, and she shot out like a flash of light. Her speed was several times faster than before, causing the shocked middle-aged man to be unable to react in time. By the time he regained his senses, he felt a cold and piercing pain on his neck. "How was it? I told you that you wouldn't be able to escape, right?" A gentle and cold voice rang out from behind him. His entire body stiffened and his eyes widened in shock. His face was filled with disbelief. How could this be? He was a peak martial master. How could she have subdued him in an instant? However, the pain from his neck and the smell of blood made him unable to believe it. He had really been defeated. He had been defeated by a woman whom he had never paid any attention to. Furthermore, this woman was Feng Qinga. TSK, I thought that you would commit suicide after being caught. I didn't think that you would cherish your life more than I imagined. Hearing her mocking voice, the middle-aged man stiffened and closed his eyes. What do you want? That's right. He didn't want to die. How could a peak martial master like him commit suicide? Even though he knew that he wouldn't have a good ending if he were to fall in her hands, he couldn't bring himself to commit suicide. Several blood-curdling screams came from the other side. He opened his eyes and saw that the men in black had all been knocked unconscious on the ground. Their mouths were slightly open and they were unable to close them. It was obvious that their chins had been broken by that man. Seeing this, his gaze darkened and his heart sank to the bottom. They had underestimated their opponents too much. They had thought that they would be able to easily take care of these two people, but instead, they had all been defeated. How could they possibly inform their master of the current situation? I told you that your fists aren't as strong as mine, but you didn't believe me. Guanxilin raised his leg and kicked the men on the ground before walking towards Fengjiu. He grinned. Xiaojiu, I've knocked these men out with a chin's break. Fengjiu glanced at the men and said, cripple their cultivation. All right. Without another word, he turned around and crippled those people's cultivation. In an instant, the people who had fainted regained consciousness due to the intense pain when their cultivation disappeared. However, their jaws were pressed so hard that they couldn't make a sound. They could only twitch weakly. Seeing their cultivations crippled in the blink of an eye, the middle-aged man's face finally turned pale, and a trace of panic appeared in his eyes. How could he be willing to let his decades of cultivation be crippled? Tell me what I want to know, or I can give you a quick death. Hearing the voice behind him, the middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. If you want to kill me, then kill me. You won't get any information from me. Really? The corner of Fengjiu's lips curled up slightly. Suddenly, he kicked him hard, causing him to bend his knees and kneel down. He used his profound energy to seal his cultivation with one hand, and at the same time, forced a pill into his mouth. Oof. Why feed me poison? If you want to kill me, then kill me. I won't beg for mercy. The middle-aged man snorted coldly. He didn't need to think to know that the pill that dissolved in his mouth was poison. He didn't have the courage to commit suicide. Even if he was unwilling to die in her hands, he wouldn't feel the slightest bit of fear. After sealing his cultivation, she walked out from behind him and played with the dagger in her hand. The smile in her eyes was somewhat strange. Chapter 146. Seeing the strange light in her eyes, the middle-aged man's heart suddenly trembled, and he felt a little uneasy. Brother, go and see if there's a dungeon or something like that. Fengjiu smiled and squinted his eyes sparkling with excitement. Okay. Although Guanxilin didn't know what she wanted to do, he immediately did as she said, and quickly searched the small house inside and out. What are you trying to do? You'll find out soon enough. Fengjiu laughed softly. Not long after, Guanxilin returned. Xiaojiu, there's no dungeon here, but there's a metal cage. It looks like it's used to lock people up. Then throw them all into the metal cage. She gestured for him to bring the middle-aged man over first, and then she fed the others medicine before dragging them to the back. After locking them up in the metal cage, Fengjiu moved a chair over and found a seat to watch the show. Then, as if remembering something, he glanced at his cheap brother and blinked. Brother, do you want to watch too? Watch what? Guanxilin had a confused look on his face. He only saw her lock them up in the cage, and then she moved a chair over to sit and watch, but he didn't know what she was looking at. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled a little embarrassedly. It's nothing. Brother, go guard outside the courtyard, and be careful of their people coming in. It was better to send him away first, otherwise it would be too dirty for his pure heart. All right, then be careful here. If there's anything, just call me. He nodded and walked out without any suspicions, arriving at the outer courtyard to stand guard. Seeing this, she smiled and turned to look at the middle-aged man in the cage, saying, It's not too late to tell me now. If I tell you, I'll let you die a little easier. As soon as he finished speaking, his gaze swept past the few black-clothed men who had slowly regained consciousness. Because their jaws had been smashed, their mouths could not close. However, because they had recovered for a while, their strength had also returned. However, after all, their cultivation had been crippled, and they were now just ordinary people. The sudden heat in his body startled him, especially when he saw Da and the other black-clothed men pulling at his clothes with blurred eyes. His expression changed greatly, and he almost cried out in alarm. You used asterisk on us. It wasn't a suspicion, but a certainty. A body's heat couldn't change into a person, and the expressions and reactions of those people couldn't be faked. However, he never thought that she would be able to think of such a method. After all, they were all men. Let me out. Let me out. When he saw those people pulling at each other's clothes, and one of them had already grabbed his leg and pulled at his pants, his face instantly turned pale, and the panic and horror on his face could no longer be concealed. Don't worry, I've already used less medicine on you. They're the ones who took more. Her eyes flashed with a mischievous light, and she said carelessly, There's only one way out for you, and that is to obediently tell me what I want to know. Then you won't be ravaged by those people, or else get lost. Chapter 147. Hearing this, her lips curled into a smile as she stood up and walked towards the metal cage. Speak. What kind of power does she have under her command? Tell me everything you know and don't play any tricks. Otherwise, the consequences will be dire. Let me out of here first. Otherwise, kill those people first. He kicked the man who was hugging his leg away and retreated to the side of the metal cage. Fengjiu crossed her arms and raised her eyebrows. Her eyes were filled with mockery as she said, It will take a while for the effects of the drug to kick in. If you want to stall for time, I don't mind watching a good show. Lunatic. He cursed in his heart, but did not dare to delay any longer. He had no choice but to tell her everything he knew. Poison sect? She muttered softly as a faint light flashed across her half-hidden eyes. The corners of her lips under the veil curled into a mischievous smile. Let me out. Quick. He shouted in panic, but his voice suddenly stopped, and his whole body fell to the ground. The other men saw this and hurriedly rushed over. One of them pulled his pants, and the other tore off his clothes. Fengjiu's eyes were cold as she glanced at the metal cage. Her nonchalant voice was cold as she said, I've never been merciful to my enemies. Since you don't have the courage to commit suicide, I'll help you. I'll make sure you don't have the strength to struggle, and have some fun with them. With that, she turned and walked out. Just as she turned around, she heard heavy panting behind her. Guan Shilin, who was guarding outside the courtyard, was stunned when he heard the heavy panting. He was about to go in to take a look when he saw Fengjiu walking out. He immediately went up to her. Xiaojiu, have you dealt with those people? I've dealt with them. Let's go. She smiled as she nodded. But why do I hear that they're still alive and they're still breathing heavily? He was confused and wanted to go in to take a look, but was pulled away by her. Don't worry about them. I've fed them poison, so they won't live to see tomorrow. Didn't you want more combat experience? Let's go. I'll take you somewhere. She dragged and pushed him out of the room. Upon hearing her words, Guan Shilin's eyes lit up. He hurriedly asked, Is it their nest? Have you interrogated him? That's right, it's their lair. We'll go there tonight and destroy their lair. She wanted to destroy the forces that Su Ryun had cultivated overnight. The poison sect's influence had risen in recent years. They mainly relied on poison and also took on assassination missions. Generally, no one dared to provoke the poison sect because no matter how strong they would be poisoned to death by those who liked to use poison before they even realized it. Hence, even if someone was aware of the poison sect's location, no one would have thought of destroying the poison sect. However, they had offended Fengjiu this time. Furthermore, the master of the poison sect was serene, who had a grudge against Fengjiu. Now that an opportunity for revenge had been placed in front of her, she would not let it go so easily. In the pitch-black night, two figures shuttled through the forest. Under the night sky, one could clearly see that they were Fengjiu and Guanxilin. Suddenly, Guanxilin reached out and tugged at Fengjiu. He lowered his voice and said, "Xiaojiu, look at this." He pointed at a stone tablet in the bushes. "The poison sect's restricted area. Trespassers will die." Chapter 148. Xiaojiu, this poison sect, is that woman's nest? Guanxilin asked in a low voice, feeling a bit incredulous. After all, the poison sect was equivalent to a mid-tier family in Yinhua City. No one knew who the master behind the scenes was. Who would have thought that it would be Su Riyun, the person who stole Xiaojiu's identity? "That's right," she replied, then took out a bottle and poured out 2 pills. "Take this. This is an antidote." Hearing this, Guanxilin took one and took it, then asked worriedly, "Then how are we going to destroy this poison sect? I heard that there are quite a few people in the poison sect, and they're experts in using poison. Can the 2 of us do it?" Fengjiu also took the pill, then said, "No need to do it directly. We'll fight poison with poison. Let's go." That night was destined to be a sleepless night. In the Feng Manor, Su Riyun was still happily waiting for the good news the next day. However, when the sun rose, no one came to report. It was as if a stone had been thrown into the ocean. There was not even the slightest bit of movement. She waited from morning until noon, but there was still no news. Finally, she could not wait any longer, so she excused herself and went to her residence in the southern part of the city. Knock, knock. 2 knocks came from the door. She stood outside and looked left and right. After waiting for a while, no one came to open the door. The bad feeling in her heart grew stronger and stronger. She immediately jumped over the wall and entered. It would have been better if she had not entered, but when she entered and saw the scene in the iron cage in the backyard, she could not help but suck in a cold breath. That unsightly scene caused her expression to become extremely ugly. Especially when a middle-aged man in the iron cage was also there, she was even more shocked. His strength was equivalent to that of a mid-tier family's pillar. He had always been by her side to make it easier for her to mobilize him. A peak martial master was not someone that could be casually killed by just anyone. However, he had died in such a humiliating manner. This caused her to be both shocked and angry. Could it be the Guanxilin siblings? But according to our investigation, that Guanxilin is not even a martial master. How could he lock the left guard, a peak martial master, in the iron cage? She mumbled to herself and felt that her heart was unable to calm down after witnessing this scene. She decided to contact the poison sect and ask about the situation. Thus, when she turned to leave, she set fire to the house. Outside, walking on the street, he still felt a little nauseous when he thought of the unsightly scene just now. Even she couldn't think of such a cruel and hair-raising punishment. Have you heard? That poison sect was exterminated last night. It is said that a fire burned the entire mountain. The fire was only extinguished this morning. Many people want to take a look and said that everything was burned to ashes. It can't be, right? Who did this? The poison sect's influence is equivalent to that of a mid-tier family clan. Furthermore, it has been several years since its rise. How could it be annihilated overnight? Hearing the whispers, Su Riyun's heart sank. She turned around and looked at the few people at the roadside tea stall. She strode forward and grabbed one of them by the shoulder. Her voice was cold and filled with killing intent as she shouted, "What did you just say? Say it again." Hiss. My shoulder. The middle-aged man who had been grabbed by her fingers turned pale from the excruciating pain and broke out in a cold sweat. Chapter 149. Hearing this, Serene felt as if her entire body had been placed in an ice cellar. She staggered back a few steps, finding it hard to accept such a piece of news as reality. No, this can't be, it can't be. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and rubbed his sore shoulder. He then replied irritably, "What do you mean it can't be? I even want to take a look this morning. The entire mountaintop has been burned to the ground. Not a single person is left alive." That's right. The news is spread like wildfire this morning. Many families in the city have sent their men to investigate, but they still haven't found out which organization had destroyed them. That's impossible. I don't believe it. Serene cried out loudly as she swept her gloomy gaze across the group. She then ran away. She wants to go and take a look. She wants to go and take a look. She refused to believe that her years of painstaking effort would go up in flames just like that. Has that woman gone mad? The members of the poison sect aren't any good people. It's better if they're dead. What's she getting so worked up about? Don't worry about her. She's just a crazy woman. She's hurting my shoulder. The middle-aged man rubbed his shoulder as he spoke. He then continued, "However, to be able to destroy an organization in one night, that's just too unbelievable. Say, do you think that the ghost doctor was behind this?" When he reached the second half of his sentence, his voice carried a sense of cautiousness, and he clearly lowered his voice. "Why would you say that? Why would the ghost doctor destroy the poison sect for no reason at all? Aren't the ghost doctor and the poison sect arch enemies? What's so strange about destroying the poison sect? Besides, if it wasn't the ghost doctor, who else would have the audacity to do such a thing? Only the ghost doctor would have the ability to destroy an entire family and an organization in one night. Isn't that so?" Hearing this, the others lowered their voices as well. "So you're saying that the ghost doctor was behind the destruction of the Sioux family and the destruction of the poison sect? Let me tell you, it's best not to speak carelessly about this matter. Be careful that a loose tongue leads to disaster. After all, no one has seen anything, right?" After hearing the words, "Trouble comes from careless talk," they looked at each other and stopped talking about this topic. Instead, they drank a few cups of tea and went home. When Serene arrived at the mountain that had been burned to ashes, the spectators had already dispersed. Her eyes were red as she looked at the bare mountain. She was so angry that she spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. "How is this possible? How is this possible?" she muttered to herself as if she had lost her soul. This was the place she had invested all her efforts into, the place she had planned to expand her influence. But now it had been destroyed in a single night. The rolling blood and chi made her heart ache. She sat on the ground for a long time before she stood up. Her absent-minded eyes reignited with a sinister light, and her hands were tightly clenched into fists. "I will never let you off. Absolutely not." Gritting her teeth, she resolutely turned around and left. If the poison sect was gone, then she would bring the Phoenix Guards over. The Phoenix Guards were the main force of the Feng Manor. They were a force that even the Emperor of the glorious Sun country feared. As long as she took over the Phoenix Guards and became the Phoenix Master, not to mention the siblings, even destroying a middle-class family would be a piece of cake. Originally, she had wanted to wait a little longer. After all, the previous Fengxinga had very little contact with the Phoenix Guards. The ones they had come into contact with were only 1 or 2 Phoenix Guards who had been transferred to protect them. As for the rest, they had not even seen them. Chapter 150. 2 days later, Feng Zhou helped the old man walk around the courtyard and asked, "Grandfather, how do you feel? Are you feeling better?" "I'm much better. If Grandpa can drink a few mouthfuls of wine, Grandpa will probably be able to walk as fast as flying even without your help." The old man smiled and squinted his eyes. His spirit had returned after resting here for 2 days. However, he hadn't drunk for a few days. Once his body recovered, he really wanted a drink. Not now. You could drink as much as you want in a few days. She helped him sit down at the stone table in the courtyard and poured him a cup of water. Little Feng, when are we going home? It's not a good idea to live outside. Also, Serene hasn't been dealt with yet. Your muddle-headed father is still being fooled. He shook his head and sighed. Speaking of which, your father is quite pitiful. He doesn't know anything. She had already told him everything that had happened in the past few days. He was very lucky that she was still alive. He was also very lucky that he was able to meet her on the street and recognize her. However, he never thought that the vicious woman in the manor would be the docile Su Ryun who had always been by Little Feng's side like a sister. It was impossible to know a person's heart. It was really impossible to judge a person's heart from their appearance. Grandfather's body is better. We can go back at any time. She smiled and also felt that it was time to return to the Feng family. The old man was very happy when he heard this. He patted her hand and said 3 times, "Good, good, good." Xiaojiu. Guanxilin quickly walked in from outside. He looked hurried. Seeing that the old man was also there, he called out, "Grandfather." Because of Fengjiu's relationship with him, the old man knew that he had asked to leave the clan. He also asked him to call him grandfather. He said that when he returned to the manor, he would ask him to become Feng Zhao's godfather. Seeing his anxious and worried expression, Fengjiu asked, "Brother, what's wrong?" "Grandfather, Xiaojiu, quickly go back to the Feng family." Something happened in the Feng family. When the old man heard this, he hurriedly asked, "What happened?" "I just came back from outside. I heard that adoptive father was worried sick because of grandfather's disappearance. It seems that adoptive father wanted a hand over the phone guards to Su Ryun to mobilize and have her do her best to find grandfather's whereabouts. Many people from various families in the city were invited over for the announcement ceremony at noon today. He wanted to tell everyone that the master of the phone guards is his daughter. But the problem is that adoptive father doesn't know that the prefectural magistrate's Feng Qinga is a fake. If we hand the Phoenix Guards over to her, we'll be in big trouble. Although he wasn't a member of the Feng family, he knew that the strength of the Feng Guards was something that even the imperial family feared. If such a force were to be obtained by that venomous woman, wouldn't that be terrible? This Su Royun, this ingrate. The old man scolded angrily. Your father's body has always been as strong as an ox. How could he fall ill as soon as I went missing? It must be that ingrate who poisoned people again. Fengjiu's mouth twitched when he heard this. Strong as an ox? Her grandfather's analogy was too apparent. But grandfather, why is it that even the imperial family is afraid of our phone guards? Well, I want to take you out that night. I felt that the strength of the phone guards guarding the door wasn't that great. That's because you haven't come into contact with the elites of our phone guards. Chapter 151. But I don't think I've ever seen our Feng family's phone guard. In his memory, he had never seen the Feng family's phone guard. However, there was some phone guard in the manor that followed grandfather and father to protect them. You will definitely come into contact with the Feng family's guard in the future. Right now, we should return home first. Otherwise, once this matter spreads, I'm afraid it will get out of hand. The old man spoke in a calm voice. He looked at Guanxilin and said, "Shilin, quickly go prepare the carriage. There isn't much time left until noon. We need to quickly go back and stop it." "Okay." Guanxilin responded and immediately walked out. Lung Shuang came in with snacks in his hands and said, "Old master, young miss, have some snacks. Qingyang just made these." Fengjiu smiled and said, "Let's return to the Feng family. We'll bring the snacks and eat them in the carriage." She was not as worried about the Feng family's current situation as the old man. With just Su Royun alone, she could not make any waves. And in the Feng family, because the news had spread, the family heads of the city had arrived one after another. They sat together and discussed in low voices. In their opinion, Feng Qinga was still too young. They feared that she would not be able to control the Feng guards and become the Feng master. However, who would have thought that so many things would happen in the Feng family during this period of time? Earlier, the head of the family had become insane. Then, he had been kidnapped and his whereabouts were unknown. In a short 2 days, even General Feng had fallen. Now, in the Feng manor, the only person who could take charge was Feng Qingge. However, no one was optimistic about her strength. Although Feng Qingge was the apple of Feng Zhao's eye, compared to her strength and ability, her beauty was more interesting. After all, they were all people of Yinya City. Naturally, they were clear about Feng Qingge's strength and cultivation. In truth, based on Feng Qingge's cultivation, she could not even compare to the children of some middle-class families, but she had a genius as her fiancé. She also had the powerful backing of the Feng manor. Thus, no one cared about how strong she was. Under a pavilion in the backyard, there were 8 men in embroidered robes. Some of them were sitting, some were standing, and some were leaning against the pavilion with their arms crossed. They were in the middle of a conversation. "Do you think Old Master will come back today?" The one who spoke was a young man in a blue robe. He was sitting at the table with one hand supporting his chin as he asked the others. A black-robed man with a serious expression took a sip of tea and said in a deep voice, "The news has been released. He will definitely come back. There seems to be quite a lot of people here today. I heard from my subordinates that even the old emperor is here." Leaning against the pavilion, a man with his arms crossed in front of his chest said casually. A white-clothed man with a folding fan in his hand asked, "However, is it really okay for us to not report this matter? Isn't that too much?" "How could that be? The head of the family didn't ask us to investigate. We found out about it after investigating it ourselves. It's not like we didn't report it." The man who spoke raised his eyebrows. His tone was somewhat matter-of-fact. The other person couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. Fortunately, those old men went into seclusion. Otherwise, if they knew that we stood by and didn't solve the problem, they would probably be drilled again. Chapter 152. Hearing these words, they all fell silent. The 8 of them were none other than the captains of the 8 elite teams of the Phoenix Guards. For them, who had been training in isolation, if it were not for the Phoenix Guards reporting to them, they would have no way of knowing what had happened in the Feng manor. But ever since they found out what had happened in the Feng manor, they began to investigate. In particular, they found out that old Master Feng had become insane and had been kidnapped. But they never thought that the person that the family head and the guards could not find had been taken away by a young girl to recuperate in a courtyard. They tried to get closer to observe, but as soon as they got close, they were noticed. They did not know if the young girl was too sharp or if their ability to hide their presence was too weak. Originally, they wanted to bring the old man back, but when they saw the old man talking and laughing with the young girl, and the young girl helping the old man walk around the courtyard every day, they gave up on the idea. The old man didn't look like someone who had gone mad at all. Although they did not know who the young girl was, her concern could not be faked. Since she did not have any ill intentions towards the old man, they did not care. "Hey, that young girl's face has been disfigured to that extent, but why does it seem like she doesn't care?" The blue-clothed man asked curiously. When he had first seen that disfigured face, he had been given a fright. After all, that was a young girl, yet her face had been disfigured to the point of being unrecognizable. Even he felt pity for her. That young girl does not have any aura of Xianqi. She is probably just a normal person. But that Guanxilin has a steady aura. He is quite a character, the black-clothed man said in a deep voice. Pausing, he looked away and said, "You have all seen the family head's daughter today, right? What do you all think?" "Nothing much. She really is not qualified to be the master of the Phoenix Guards. Her strength is indeed not outstanding, but her appearance is quite outstanding. Looking at such a gentle and graceful woman, we want her to be the master of the Phoenix Guards? TSK, I really don't want to. The first time I saw her, I felt very disappointed. I don't think so either. She can't control us. There's nothing we can do about it. After all, the patriarch only has one daughter." After hearing their words, the black-robed man stood up and said, "No, she's not simple." What do you mean?" The 7 of them asked at the same time, somewhat surprised that he would say such a thing. That Feng Qingge, they didn't see anything special about her. "Intuition. Chi," the others sneered. "I don't feel anything at all. Turning their gazes, they all looked in a certain direction. One of them smiled and said, "Everyone says not to talk about people during the day and not to talk about ghosts at night." Look, as soon as we said that, people came. Not far away, a figure in a colorful dress was walking over, followed by two maidservants. When she saw the few young men with outstanding appearances who were either standing or sitting in the pavilion, a light flashed across her eyes. These 8 people were the 8 team captains of the Phoenix Guard's elite division. Their strength had already reached the peak of the martial master realm. After all, the old man had only been a martial arts grandmaster at stage 8 of the initial stage of the Black Realm. Even Feng Xiao had only entered the martial arts grandmaster realm a few years ago. Now, he was only a stage 2 of the initial stage of the Black Realm. Chapter 153. The man in blue saw that she was standing outside the pavilion and looking at them without saying a word. He could not help but raise his eyebrows and asked, "Is something the matter, eldest young lady?" Su Riyun returned to her senses, and her gaze swept across the faces of the 8 people. She asked in a gentle voice, "What are your names?" "Names?" He smiled as he walked over and leaned against the pillar of the pavilion. "The old men above us have instructed us that we can only speak of our names to our master. So, before eldest young lady becomes our master, we don't mind if eldest young lady places numbers on us and ranks us to become famous." A man walked up from behind with his arms crossed over his chest. He glanced at the people beside him, then looked at the people outside the pavilion. With a somewhat sloppy look on his face, he said, "She's not our master yet. She can't order us around, and even if she ranks us to become famous, she can't mobilize us. Eldest young lady, although we're Phoenix Guards, we haven't recognized a master yet. Whether or not you can make us recognize you as our master will depend on your ability." Another person walked up and spoke in a very rude tone. After all, although they were Phoenix Guards, there was no need for them to be polite to someone who was not their master. Hearing this, Su Riyun was not angry. She smiled and looked at them. Her voice was filled with confidence as she said, "You will serve me." Once she finished speaking, she turned and walked towards the front courtyard. From her point of view, the real Feng Qinga was already dead. It was only a matter of time before the Phoenix Guards fell into her hands. She did not believe that with her ability, she would not be able to make them serve her. When she walked closer, a man in black robes walked up and glanced at the 2 people next to him. "Don't go too far. She's the master's daughter after all. She's the master we'll be loyal to." "How do you know that she has the ability to make us willingly call her master?" The sloppy man spoke disapprovingly. It was obvious that he did not place her in his eyes. "But don't forget what the old men have been telling us all this time." Hearing this, the few of them fell silent, and no one said anything else. After a while, the man in black robes said, "It's about time. Let's go to the front and take a look." "That's good too." The few of them replied and headed to the front yard together. At this time, in the direction of the Feng Manor, because of the emperor's departure, it attracted the attention of the citizens on the streets. They all watched in amazement as the grand procession headed towards the Feng Manor. In the imperial carriage, the monarch, wearing a bright yellow dragon robe, sat in a dignified manner. To his side, Murong Yixian, wearing a purple robe and filled with a noble aura, followed on a horse. When the family heads of the Feng Manor heard that even the country lord had come, they were a little surprised. The matter of the Feng Manor announcing Feng Qinggu as the Phoenix Master normally did not require the emperor to personally come. However, he had come today. The meaning behind this was quite thought-provoking. Even so, the crowd still came out to greet him. After all, he was the monarch of the glorious Sun Kingdom and a powerful expert. Naturally, they did not dare to show any disrespect. As the current person in charge of the Feng Manor, Su Ruoyun walked out from the crowd and saluted towards the imperial carriage. This official's daughter, Feng Qinggu, respectfully welcomes the emperor's arrival. "We respectfully welcome the monarch." All the family heads said in unison and bowed slightly. A low voice came from the imperial carriage. The monarch, wearing a bright yellow dragon robe, walked down from the carriage. His sharp eyes contained a dignified aura as they swept over the crowd. Only then did he walk inside. Chapter 154. Weren't most of the people here? Why were there still people here? Everyone was puzzled. Their footsteps paused as they looked at the inconspicuous carriage parked in front of the gate. Murong Yixin, who was about to enter, also stopped when he saw the carriage. Not only did he find the carriage familiar, he also felt that the woman in black driving it was familiar. She seemed to be the person beside the lady last time. Xiao Jiao, I'll help you. Guan Shilin, dressed in black, jumped up from the carriage and reached out to help the person coming out from behind. That Xiao Jiao made Murong Yixin's heart skip a beat. A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. He couldn't move and just stared at the person coming out of the carriage. At this time, Su Ruoyin didn't see the person coming out of the carriage. Because the Lord had entered the manor, she went to the front to receive him. Thus, not only did she not see Guan Shilin and Feng Jiao, she didn't even see the person coming out of the carriage. Otherwise, she would have been scared pale. Isn't that old Master Feng? When all the family heads saw the man and woman helping the old man out of the carriage, they finally saw that the old man was the missing old master of the Feng Manor. Also, looking at his expression, how did he look like someone who had gone mad? Immediately, everyone gathered around him. Old Master Feng, you're finally back. Old Master Feng. General Feng fell ill from worry when you weren't in the manor. Old Master Feng, where did you go during this time? Everyone asked at once, their words filled with concern. Because only the large families in Yunyu City came today, there wasn't a single person from a mid-level family. Thus, everyone was completely unfamiliar with Guan Shilin and Feng Jiao. No one recognized them. I made everyone worry. This old man is fine, the old master said with a smile and nodded to everyone. Grandfather Feng, Murong Yixin, walked over. Seeing that he had recovered well, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. Why was he with Guan Shilin and Guan Shilin? He turned to look at Feng Jiao with an inquisitive gaze. Old Master Feng saw him and said kindly, So, Yixin, you're here today? This old man heard that the monarch is also here. Seeing that he was looking at his phone glass, the smile on his face deepened. No matter how one looked at it, these two people were a very compatible couple. Unfortunately, Feng Girl's face, when the Feng Manor's guard saw that it was the old master coming out of the carriage, they quickly ran inside and shouted, It's the old master. Master's master. Master's master. Grandfather, let's go in. Tess Yixin's the old Guan Shilin, says Guan Shilin to the right behind her. Kiss. What did you say? Su Ruoyin, who was sitting in the main seat, heard the guard's words and her face turned pale. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Who did you say came back? Who? It's the old master. The old master's back, the guard said in surprise. The Lord, who was sitting and drinking tea, noticed that something was wrong with her. He raised an eyebrow, a little surprised by her panicked reaction. Chapter 155. The old master has returned? Where is he? Hearing the voice, the monarch looked in the direction of the voice. Once he saw who it was, shock appeared on his face. It had only been a few days, but this Feng Xiao had actually become this weak. He couldn't even walk, and he still needed someone to support him. Master, you should sit here for now. The old master is at the door and will come in a moment. A man wearing white clothes and holding a folding fan gently said. After supporting him to sit down, he looked outside the courtyard. The monarch, Murong Bo, looked at the outstanding men standing next to Feng Xiao. Deep thought flashed through his sharp black eyes. After discreetly sizing them up, he looked away. When Serene saw the Feng guards next to Feng Xiao, she gritted her teeth. Not only did these people not put her in their eyes, but they also took Feng Xiao out without permission. They really deserved to die. Originally, she had only planned to let Feng Xiao come out for a while before returning to prevent others from noticing, but now, at this time, Feng Jiao walked in with the old master, followed by a group of people. When she saw Feng Jiu next to the old master, Serene sucked in a cold breath. How could it be you? How could you be here? This woman. She had not forgotten that her poison had been ruined because of her. This woman's origins were mysterious and strange. Now, she actually dared to appear in the Feng manor in front of her. Did she really think that she would not do anything to her? Guards, take her away. She loudly shouted and immediately ordered the guards to take Feng Jiu away. However, no one dared to do so because they did not dare. Even an idiot could see that the veiled girl was supporting their old master. Go forward and take her away? It was not like they were tired of living. Feng Jiu did not say anything. He only looked at her with a faint smile. When old Master Feng saw this, he snorted heavily and shouted, "Where are the Phoenix Guards?" The 8 young noble-like men standing beside Feng Xiao took a step forward at the same time. Their steps were steady and imposing. They lined up side by side and cupped their hands in salute in unison. Their sonorous and powerful voices that contained a strong, profound energy aura were respectfully transmitted out. "Greetings, old master." It was just a few words, but it shook the hearts of everyone present. After the 8 of them bowed, they stood up straight. The sloppiness that originally appeared on their bodies were all gone at this moment. His solemn face contained a fierce and breathtaking murderous aura. The aura on his body was strong and fierce, like an iron-blooded warrior that had walked out from the battlefield. His uniform steps and his tall and straight heroic figure caused the eyes of others to light up and shock in their hearts. These were the Phoenix Guards. It was the elite division that struck terror into the hearts of the neighboring armies. That troop was made up of such iron-blooded tough men, all of them outstanding young men. "Take her away from me." Old Master Feng pointed his finger at the deathly pale Serene. If his sharp and resentful gaze could kill, she would have died no less than 100 times. "Father!" Serene recovered from her shock. Her first reaction was to seek Feng Xiao's protection because only Feng Xiao could protect her old master. However, she was destined to be disappointed, because Feng Xiao was currently looking in astonishment at the elegant girl wearing a white dress and a veil who was supporting the old master. A thought surfaced in his mind, and he spoke with a trembling voice. Chapter 156. After the 8 people responded in unison, 2 of them stepped forward, grabbed Su Ruoyun's hands, and brought her in front of the old master. Everyone was first shocked that the old master had ordered the Feng guards to capture his granddaughter. Then they were puzzled by Feng Xiao's current reaction. Thus, their probing gazes fell upon the white-clothed woman, trying to guess her identity. Murong Yixian looked at Feng Qingge, who had her hands clasped behind her back as she was brought before the old master, and couldn't help but frown. He was about to speak, but when he heard Feng Xiao's question, his gaze fell upon the white-robed woman. He also wanted to know who she was. Feng Jiu looked at the emotional Feng Xiao, whose eyes were slightly red. He sighed in his heart and said, "You've already guessed it, haven't you?" He wasn't an idiot. So many things had happened in the Feng manor recently. In addition, the old master had returned, and even she had appeared. If he still hadn't reacted by now, then he wouldn't be the famous great General Feng Xiao. "You my daughter Qingge." His voice was choked with sobs. He reached out and held Feng Jiu's hand. I'm sorry. Father didn't know that the person beside him was fake. Thinking of the old master's words that day and his anger at that time, then looking at her veiled face, his heart ached, and he couldn't help but burst into tears. "I'm sorry. It's Father's fault. It's Father's fault." An awe-inspiring great general was actually crying like a child. His appearance of tears falling like rain made everyone who saw him feel astonished and shocked. What did he just say? The woman with the veil was his daughter Qingge? Then who was the person being held captive? "Uncle Xiao, who did you say she was?" Murong Yixian's voice trembled uncontrollably. He stared blankly at the white-clothed woman with the veil. He found it hard to believe, but also felt excitement and joy. His heart thumped wildly. That kind of feeling was indescribable. "Woo-woo, my daughter, Feng Xiao cried out of guilt, but because his body was weak, he couldn't bear such an impact. He cried and cried until he fainted. "You too, send my father back to his room," Feng Jiu ordered in a deep voice as he looked at the Phoenix guards who were staring at him with wide eyes. "Yes." After the almost instinctive response, the few people were suddenly startled. They looked at each other and felt that it was a little strange. However, two people still walked out and sent Feng Xiao back. At this time, old Master Feng's aged but vigorous voice that contained profound energy rang out. "In front of everyone here, this old man will tell everyone about this matter." He paused and pointed at Serene. "She's not my granddaughter, Feng Qingge. She's just an orphan that my granddaughter picked up from the streets when she was young. Serene. My granddaughter treated her like a sister, but she schemed against my granddaughter and wanted to murder her. She took my granddaughter's identity and stole everything from her. And this, after being discovered by this old man, used poison to harm this old man. This woman is vicious and sinister. She's heartless and unjust." After hearing this, everyone went into an uproar. They all sucked in a breath of cold air, feeling that this matter was too inconceivable and too terrifying. She even took someone else's identity. If no one found out, then wouldn't this large Feng manor have fallen into her hands in the end? Ha 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 ha. Chapter 157. At this moment, there was no way to reverse the situation. She naturally did not need to hide anything. At this moment, she finally understood why she felt that she was an eyesore when she met her on the streets. She also finally understood why the people she sent to kill her not only failed, but also destroyed the power she had painstakingly cultivated. So it was her. So she had not died this entire time. She was very clear on how much weight Feng Qingge had. With her abilities, it was impossible for her to destroy her poison sect in one night, and it was even more impossible for her to come to the Feng Manor and rescue the old man. The only thing she could be certain of was that there was someone behind her. "Why don't you take off your veil? Aren't you Feng Qingge? Take off your veil." She looked at Feng Jiu provocatively, her eyes filled with madness and viciousness. "Let everyone see if the face under your veil is really Feng Qingge or not." Feng Jiu looked at her, his eyes filled with a cold light. He did not pay attention to her words and instead said to the old man, "Grandfather, your body has just recovered. You cannot receive too much shock. You should return to your courtyard first. Leave this place to me to handle." "Feng girl." The old man was a little worried, fearing that she would not be able to handle it. "It's fine. I can handle it here." She gently smiled, indicating that he did not need to worry. She then called the housekeeper and had him support the old man back. When everyone saw this, they were curious. What did she want to do? She actually could not allow the old man to be present. Murong Yixian looked at her, his heart feeling very complicated. He could not find a chance to speak. Lord Murong Bo had been completely overlooked by everyone today. There was nothing that could be done. Who told everyone to focus on the real and fake Feng Qingge? "You too. Bring her out of the Feng Manor's main gates." Feng Jiu's gaze swept past the two Feng guards holding Su Ruoyan. He then turned around and walked out. Seeing this, the two of them looked at each other and followed after him. In front of the Feng Manor's main gate, Feng Jiu sat in a chair that a guard had brought over. Surrounding him were the various family heads who had come to watch, as well as the guards that had been waiting outside. Even the Murong Bo was curious and came over. He sat in the chair that had been brought over and looked at the graceful and calm Feng Jiu with interest. "Aren't you tired of wearing my face for so long?" She rested her chin on one hand and sat with her legs crossed. It was obviously not a very elegant movement, but it felt casual and natural. "I've been sick of it for a long time. I feel disgusted every day when I look at this face," Su Ruoyun said gloomily. Her tone was filled with disgust as she struggled. "Let me go." The two Phoenix guards were holding her down, so naturally, she couldn't break free. "Let her go." "She can't run." Feng Jiu gestured for the two to let her go. Once she was free, Su Ruoyan tore off the mask on her face and threw it on the ground, revealing her original face, a delicate and pretty beauty. Unfortunately, although her face was delicate and pretty, her heart was like a snake. One of the family heads who was watching exclaimed in surprise, "What a brilliant disguise! That mask is connected to the neck and behind the ears. No wonder others couldn't see it." Morong Ishian looked at Su Ruoyun in shock. He never thought that it would really be her. Perhaps it was because she felt Morong Ishian's gaze, but this was the first time Su Ruoyun felt ashamed and embarrassed. She didn't even dare to look at him, afraid that she would see a gaze that she couldn't bear. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.